The feedback from the microphone screeched for a split second, cutting through the heavy silence of the room. Deon did not even wince. He gripped the device like a rock star holding court at a sold-out arena. He looked down at me with a mixture of pity and disdain that made my skin crawl. "You know what the problem is, Keisha," he said, his voice amplified and booming off the mahogany walls. "The problem is that I have evolved. I have ascended. And you are still exactly where I found you 5 years ago. You are safe. You are predictable. You are the human equivalent of beige paint." He chuckled at his own joke, and a few of his gym buddies let out nervous laughter trying to stay on his good side. "I am a brand now," he continued, gesturing to his diamond watch and his custom suit. "I am an icon in this city. When I walk into a room, the energy changes. When you walk into a room, nobody even looks up from their phone. I need a partner who matches my frequency. I need a woman who understands that life is a stage, and we are the main characters." He turned his body away from me, pointing a manicured finger toward the table directly to his left. There sat a woman who was the polar opposite of me in every conceivable way. She was wearing a dress made of what looked like silver mesh, leaving very little to the imagination. Her hair was a cascading waterfall of expensive extensions, and her makeup was applied with camera-ready precision. She was typing furiously on her phone, ignoring the tension in the room, until Deon called her name. "Stand up, Mercedes, show them what I am talking about." The woman stood up. She did not look embarrassed. She looked thrilled. She struck a pose, popping her hip and pouting her lips, as if she were on a red carpet rather than at her boyfriend's wife's birthday dinner. She was beautiful in a manufactured plastic way that screamed new money and insecurity. "Look at that," Deon said, sweeping his hand toward her like he was unveiling a new car. "That is vitality. That is excitement. Mercedes has 2 million followers. She influences the culture. She brings value to the table. When we walk in together, people stop and stare. That is the kind of energy I need around my empire. Not someone who worries about budgets and tax brackets and staying home on Friday nights." He turned back to me, his eyes cold and hard. "I am doing you a favor, Keisha. I really am. You are drowning in my wake. You cannot swim in these waters. You are a Honda Civic trying to keep up with a Lamborghini, and it is pathetic to watch. I am setting you free to go find a nice, boring accountant or a librarian, someone who likes quiet nights and coupon clipping. You are too small for my life now. You are holding me back." The silence in the room was absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket. My parents were not there, thank God, but Deon's entire family was. His mother, Viola, swirled her wine looking bored. His brother Jamal stared at his shoes. Nobody said a word. Nobody stood up to stop him. They were all on his payroll, or hoping to be. They were all complicit in this public execution of my dignity. Deon took a sip of his scotch, the microphone still in his hand, and looked at me, waiting for the breakdown. He wanted the tears. He wanted the scene. He wanted to prove that I was weak and emotional, while he was the rational businessman making a hard decision. He wanted me to validate his cruelty by falling apart. But as I looked from him to Mercedes, and back again, something strange happened. The shock began to recede, replaced by a cold, clinical clarity. He called me safe. He called me boring. He had no idea that the only reason he was standing there in a custom suit instead of an orange jumpsuit was because of my boring, safe skills. He thought he was a Lamborghini. I knew he was a stolen vehicle with a tampered VIN number, and I was the only mechanic keeping the engine running. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just stared at him, my face a mask of absolute calm. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands, like I was holding a lead weight. My fingers trembled not from sadness, but from the sheer shock of the ambush. I looked down at the bold black letters. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. I wanted to laugh. The only difference was that he had become a monster and I had stayed human. The room was still spinning from Deon's speech, But the silence he left behind was quickly filled by the people who were supposed to be my family. Viola sat across from me, swirling her red wine in a glass that cost more than my first car. Her eyes were hard, flinty things that had never shown me a flicker of warmth in 7 years. She leaned forward, the diamonds on her fingers clicking against the table. "Sign it, child," she said, her voice raspy and devoid of sympathy. "Do it now and save yourself the embarrassment of a fight you cannot win. You need to release him. My son was born to shine. He is a star. He needs a woman who reflects his light, not a little office mouse who tries to dim it. You have been dragging him down since the day you met. We all saw it. We all waited for him to wake up. Today is that day." She took a sip of wine, her gaze dismissing me as if I were already gone. "You were a starter wife, Keisha. Good for the struggle, but useless for the success." I felt the blood drain from my face. Starter wife. I had done her taxes for free. I had helped her refinance her home when the bank was about to foreclose. I had kept her secrets. And this was my repayment. Then Tiffany chimed in. My brother-in-law's wife. The woman who had smiled in my face at Thanksgiving while making comments about my hair texture and my background. She reached out and patted my hand, her touch cold and clammy. Her voice was high-pitched and dripping with fake sweetness, the kind that stings worse than a slap. "Honestly, Keisha, it is for the best," she said, tilting her head to the side. "You never really fit the aesthetic, did you? We tried to include you, but you are just so practical. You are so serious. Deon is building a legacy here. He needs someone who understands the culture of wealth, someone who knows how to be seen. You always want to be invisible. Look at you." She gestured to my dress, the sensible emerald sheath I had bought on sale. "You dress like a librarian going to a funeral. Mercedes dresses like a queen. It is not your fault, really. You just do not have the pedigree for this life. You will be happier with someone your own speed, someone simple." The table erupted in quiet snickers. Tiffany smiled, satisfied with her little dig. It was a masterclass in cruelty wrapped in concern. She was telling me I was low class. She was telling me I was unworthy, and she was doing it while pretending to comfort me. I looked around the table. Jamal was laughing at something Deon whispered. The security guards were watching me, waiting for me to make a move so they could throw me out. I was completely alone. Or so I thought. I gripped the pen Deon had thrown at me, my knuckles turning white. They wanted me to sign. They wanted me to disappear. They had no idea that by signing these papers, I was not losing a husband, I was gaining a witness list for the federal indictment. The scent of sandalwood cut through the suffocating mix of cheap cologne and expensive scotch. It was subtle, grounding, and completely out of place in this circus. I stiffened, sensing movement beside me, but I did not turn my head. I kept my eyes fixed on the divorce papers, the black ink blurring slightly as I tried to focus. Then a voice murmured directly into my ear. It was low, deep, and vibrated with a quiet intensity that sent a shockwave down my spine. "Sign it, Keisha." I blinked, startled. I turned my head just enough to see him. Julian, Deon's older cousin. The black sheep of the family, not because he was a failure, but because he was successful in a way they could not understand. While Deon built a loud, flashy empire on debt and hype, Julian had quietly amassed power in boardrooms and courtrooms far away from Atlanta's social scene. He was sitting in the shadows, nursing a glass of water, looking like a predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. His dark eyes were locked onto mine. There was no pity in them, no mockery, only a fierce, unwavering certainty. He leaned in closer, his shoulder brushing mine. The contact was electric, a stark contrast to the cold dismissal I had received from everyone else all night. "Do not let him see you cry," he whispered, his voice a rough velvet against my skin. "Do not give him the satisfaction of your pain. He does not deserve your tears. He deserves your signature." My breath hitched. Julian had always been polite, distant even. We had exchanged maybe 50 words in 7 years. "Hello. Goodbye. Nice to see you." He was the family enigma, the successful lawyer who showed up for holidays but never stayed late. I had always assumed he looked down on us, on Deon's flashy lifestyle, and by extension, on me. But now, looking at him up close, I saw something else. I saw anger. Controlled, simmering anger directed not at me, but at the man standing at the head of the table. "Sign it," he repeated softer this time, "a secret just for us. Sign it and walk away. Leave the trash where it belongs." And then he paused, and for a split second his gaze dropped to my lips before snapping back to my eyes. The intensity of it made my heart hammer against my ribs. "Then I will finally have a chance with you." The world stopped. The noise of the restaurant, the laughter of Tiffany, the drone of Viola's voice, it all faded into a dull roar. A chance with me. Julian. The man who moved mountains with a phone call. The man who walked into rooms and commanded respect without saying a word. He wanted a chance with me. Not Mercedes, the Instagram model, not some high-powered attorney. Me. The boring, safe accountant. He slid his hand onto the table covering mine for a brief moment. His skin was warm, his grip firm. It was a promise. An anchor in the storm. "Trust me," he said. I looked at him. Really looked at him for the first time. I saw the intelligence in his eyes, the strength in his jaw, the way he held himself with a quiet dignity that Deon could never buy. And in that moment, I knew. He was not just offering me an escape. He was offering me a future. A real one. I turned back to the papers. Deon was still preening, still waiting for his applause. Viola was still sneering. Tiffany was still giggling. But they did not matter anymore. They were ghosts. Fading echoes of a life I had already outgrown. I reached into Julian's jacket pocket, my hand brushing the fine wool of his suit. I pulled out his pen. It was heavy black, expensive. A weapon. I uncapped it. The click sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I looked at Deon one last time. He was smiling, confident in his victory. He thought he had broken me. He had no idea he had just set me free. I pressed the nib to the paper, and I signed. The weight of the Mont Blanc pen in my hand felt like a gavel. For 7 years, I had been the one smoothing things over. I had been the one apologizing when Deon came home late. I had been the one fixing his credit score when he maxed out his cards on bottle service and designer sneakers. I had been the one making him look like a king while he treated me like the help. But Julian's words had cut through the fog of my conditioning. "Sign them, and I will finally have my chance with you." Those words rewrote the history of my marriage in a single heartbeat. I realized I was not the victim here. I was the prize. And Deon was too stupid to realize he was handing the winning lottery ticket to someone else. I did not look at Viola, who was watching me with hawk eyes, expecting a breakdown. I did not look at Tiffany, who was already texting someone, probably spreading the gossip. I looked down at the signature line. Petitioner Deon Brooks. Respondent Keisha Robinson. I pressed the nib to the paper. The ink flowed smooth and dark like oil. I signed my name with a flourish I did not know I possessed. Keisha Robinson. I left the Brooks off. I was done carrying his name and his baggage. The scratching of the pen stopped. I capped it with a solid, audible click that sounded like a lock snapping shut. I pushed the manila envelope across the table toward Deon. It slid over the white tablecloth and bumped against his Scotch glass. "Done," I said. My voice did not tremble. It did not crack. It sounded like the voice I used when I told a CEO that his company was being audited. Cold, professional, final. Deon stared at the envelope. He looked at the signature. Then he looked up at me. His brow furrowed in genuine confusion. The smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of disorientation. He had rehearsed this moment. I knew him better than he knew himself. He had practiced his speeches. He had prepared his fake sympathy. He was ready for me to scream. He was ready for me to cry and ask him why I wasn't enough. He was ready to be the heartbreaker. He was not ready to be dismissed. You signed it, he asked, his voice losing its theatrical boom. Just like that. You are not even going to read it. I picked up my napkin and placed it gently on the table. Why would I read it, Deon? You want out. I am letting you out. Consider it a refund on a bad investment. A few of his friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The show was going off script. Mercedes, the woman in the silver mesh dress, stopped posing for her selfie camera and looked at Deon, waiting for him to do something cool. But Deon was frozen. His ego was taking a hit he had not anticipated. He wanted to discard me. He did not expect me to walk into the trash compactor willingly. Are you sure about this? He asked, trying to regain his footing, trying to find that arrogance again. Once you walk out those doors, Keisha, there is no coming back. You are going to be on your own. No more VIP sections. No more lifestyle. You are going back to being nobody. I stood up slowly, smoothing the front of my dress. I looked him dead in the eye. Deon, you built your lifestyle on loans I secured and taxes I hid. You think you are the VIP, but baby, you are just the liability, and I am closing the account. I saw the flash of panic in his eyes. For a second, he remembered who I really was. He remembered that I knew where every single skeleton in his closet was buried because I was the one who dug the graves, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Not in front of Mercedes, not in front of his mother. Fine, he spat, grabbing the envelope and shoving it into his jacket. If you want to be a nobody, that is your choice. Get out. Get out of my party. I turned to Julian. He was sitting perfectly still, watching Deon, with the cold calculation of a man watching a car crash he had predicted. He held out his hand, palm up. I placed the pen back into it. His fingers closed around it, warm and strong. Thank you for the pen, I said softly. Any time, Keisha, Julian replied. His voice was a low rumble that Deon could not hear. Any time at all. I turned and walked away. I could feel Deon's eyes boring into my back. I could hear Viola muttering something about ungrateful women, but I kept walking. My heels clicked a steady rhythm on the floor. I did not look back. I was walking out of a marriage, but I was walking into a war. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to fight. The heavy oak doors of the private dining room seemed to vibrate with the tension. Deon stood there, the manila envelope clutched in his hand like a weapon he didn't know how to use. He looked around the room, desperate for validation, searching for the nods and smirks that usually fueled his ego. But the room was quiet. Too quiet. His friends were looking at their drinks. The Instagram model, Mercedes, had stopped chewing her gum. My silence, my lack of tears, my absolute refusal to play the role of the scorned, hysterical woman had sucked the oxygen right out of his performance. He couldn't handle it. A man like Deon needed chaos to feel in control. My calm was an insult he couldn't process. His face flushed a deep, mottled red, the veins in his neck bulging against his collar. You think you're smart? He sneered, stepping into my personal space, trying to use his height to intimidate me. You think you can just sign a piece of paper and walk away like you're the one making the decisions? I made you, Keisha. I bought the clothes on your back. I paid for the hair on your head. Without me, you are a zero. I didn't blink. I didn't step back. And without me, Deon, I said, my voice barely a whisper but cutting through the air like a razor. You're just a man in a leased suit with a credit score that's about to hit the floor. That broke him. He snapped his fingers at the large, stone-faced security guard standing near the entrance. Get her out of here, Deon barked, his voice cracking slightly. Right now. This is a private event. VIPs only. She's not on the guest list anymore. She is trespassing. The guard, a man named Marcus, who I had tipped generously last Christmas, looked hesitant. He shifted his weight, looking from Deon to me. Mr. Brooks, She's nobody! Deon screamed, spittle flying from his lips. I said get her out! I reached for my clutch on the table, the small silver bag that held my phone, my ID, and the only credit card I had in my name. Before my fingers could graze the metal clasp, Deon's hand shot out. He snatched the purse off the table, holding it out of my reach like a schoolyard bully. "Brave," I said, extending my hand. "Give me my bag, Deon." He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "I don't think so. I paid for this phone. I pay the bill every month. I bought this bag. As far as I'm concerned, these are marital assets, disputed property." He shoved the purse into the hands of his brother Jamal, who looked startled but clutched it to his chest. "Until the lawyers figure out who owns what, this stays with the estate. You walk out of here with exactly what you brought into this marriage. Nothing." It was a calculated move, cruel and petty. He was trying to strand me in downtown Atlanta at night, in the rain, with no money, no way to call a ride, and no identification. He wanted me to panic. He wanted me to lunge for the bag, to scream, to give him a reason to have Marcus drag me out physically. I looked at the purse in Jamal's hands. My phone contained photos of my late mother. It had messages from my friends. But I knew something Deon didn't. I was a forensic accountant. My life was backed up on 3 different cloud servers with encryption keys he couldn't crack in 1,000 years. The phone was just hardware. The data was safe. I lowered my hand. I smoothed the fabric of my dress, dusting off an invisible speck of lint. "Keep it," I said, my voice cool and detached. "You're going to need every dime you can get from pawning that bag. Legal fees are expensive, Deon, especially when you're defending against the federal government." Deon's eyes narrowed, confusion flickering behind the rage. He didn't understand the threat yet. He just thought I was being bitter. "Get out," he hissed. I turned my back on him. I didn't look at Viola, who was watching with a satisfied smirk. I didn't look at Tiffany. I walked toward the door, my head high, my heels clicking a steady rhythm on the floor. Marcus the guard stepped aside, opening the door for me, his eyes lowered in shame. "I'm sorry, Miss Keisha," he mumbled as I passed. "It's not your fault, Marcus," I said softly. "You're just working for the wrong side." I stepped out of the private room and into the main restaurant. The noise of happy diners, the clink of glasses, the smell of steak and butter, it all felt surreal. I walked past the hostess stand, pushed open the heavy glass doors, and stepped out into the night. The humidity hit me first, heavy and suffocating, followed instantly by the cold sting of rain. I stood under the valet awning, hugging my arms around myself. I had no car keys, no coat, no money. Behind me, the muffled bass of music started up again in the private room. Deon was probably ordering another round, celebrating his victory. He thought he had stripped me bare. He thought he had left me helpless. But as I watched the rain slick the pavement, I felt a strange, cold resolve settling in my chest. He had taken my purse. He had taken my marriage. But he had just given me the biggest weapon of all, a reason to burn his world down. The heavy glass doors swung shut behind me, cutting off the sound of Deon's laughter and the clinking of glasses. The silence of the street was sudden and jarring. It felt like the airlock of a spaceship sealing me off from a world I no longer inhabited. Rain fell in relentless sheets, blurring the Atlanta skyline into streaks of neon and charcoal gray. I stepped out from under the valet awning and the water soaked through my silk dress instantly. It was freezing, a bone-deep cold that had nothing to do with the temperature and everything to do with the hollowness in my chest. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold on to the last shreds of my body heat. My teeth began to chatter. I checked my pockets out of habit and felt nothing but the wet fabric. No phone, no wallet, no keys. Deon had not just divorced me. He had exiled me. He had stripped me of my resources and stranded me in the middle of the city like a piece of unwanted furniture left on the curb for trash collection. I looked down the street. It was empty save for a few cars splashing through deep puddles. I could start walking. I could walk until I found a police station or a hotel lobby where I could beg to use a phone. But who would I call? My parents were gone. My friends were in that room laughing at Deon's jokes. I leaned against the rough brick wall of the restaurant, feeling the faint vibration of the bass from the party inside. My party. The party I had planned. The party I had organized. Now I was on the outside. The wet concrete seeped through the soles of my heels. I closed my eyes and tilted my head back, letting the rain wash over my face. I needed to wash him off me. I needed to scrub away 7 years of gaslighting and compromises. I stood there, a statue of misery, wondering if this was rock bottom. A hum, low and powerful, broke through the sound of the rain. I opened my eyes. A car was gliding toward the curb. It was not a taxi. It was not a rideshare. It was a sleek black shadow on wheels. A Maybach S-Class. The paint was so dark it seemed to absorb the streetlights. It moved with a predatory grace, parting the rain as it pulled up directly in front of me. The engine purred, a deep, throaty sound that spoke of immense restrained power. I tensed, stepping back slightly. Deon drove a leased Ferrari because he wanted everyone to look at him. This car was different. This car demanded respect without having to ask for it. It was a fortress. The rear window lowered with a silent electronic hum. The interior was warm, glowing with soft amber ambient light. A man sat in the back seat. He was looking straight ahead, his profile sharp and unyielding against the dark leather. He turned his head slowly. The street lamp caught the angles of his face, the strong jaw, the dark, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything and reveal nothing. It was Julian. He did not smile. He did not look at me with the pity I had seen in everyone else's eyes tonight. He did not ask if I was okay. He looked at me with expectation. He looked at me like a general waiting for his soldier to report for duty. The window rolled down fully, revealing the dry, safe world inside. "Get in, Keisha," he said. His voice was clear, carrying easily over the sound of the storm. It was not a request. It was an instruction. I stood frozen on the wet pavement. Water dripped from my hair into my eyes. I looked at the open door. I looked back at the restaurant one last time. Inside was my past. A man who treated me like an accessory. A family that treated me like a servant. Outside in the rain was a man I barely knew. A man who had handed me a pen and told me to sign my life away. A man who was now offering me the only lifeline I had. I made my choice. I stepped off the curb and pulled the door handle. The heavy door thudded shut, sealing out the storm instantly. The silence inside the cabin was absolute and heavy, like entering a decompression chamber. I sat there shivering uncontrollably, the rainwater dripping from the hem of my dress onto the pristine black leather floor mats. I waited for him to speak. I waited for the questions, or the pity, or the judgment. I waited for him to tell me I was a fool for marrying his cousin. But Julian did not say a word. He simply reached into a hidden compartment in the center console and pulled out a thick white towel. Steam rose from it in the cool air of the car. It was warm. He handed it to me without looking at my ruined makeup or my shaking hands. "Dry off," he said, his voice low and steady. "You are soaking wet." I took the towel, burying my face in the soft fabric. The heat seeped into my frozen skin, shocking my system. It smelled of lavender and safety. I wiped my face, my arms, and my neck, scrubbing away the rain and the humiliation. For the first time in hours, my heart rate began to slow. The car began to move, gliding away from the curb with such smoothness I barely felt the acceleration. I looked over at Julian. He was typing on his phone, his profile illuminated by the soft blue light of the screen. He looked calm, controlled. He was the eye of the hurricane while I was the wreckage left behind. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice raspy and small in the quiet space. "My place," he replied without looking up. "It is secure. Deon does not know where I live. He thinks I stay at the firm." I nodded, leaning back against the seat. I should have been terrified. I was in a car with a man I barely knew heading to an undisclosed location in the middle of the night. But my instincts, the same gut feelings that made me a top-tier forensic accountant, told me I could trust him. He reached into his jacket pocket again. This time he pulled out a sleek black smartphone. It was brand new. "Take this," he said, handing it to me. "It is a burner. It is untraceable. Prepaid for 6 months with unlimited data. Your number is already programmed in, so is mine. Do not turn on your old phone even if you manage to get it back." Deon installed tracking software on it 3 months ago. I took the phone, staring at it in disbelief. He had prepared for this. He had towels. He had phones. He had a getaway car. "How did you know?" I asked, the question tumbling out before I could stop it. "How did you know he was going to do this tonight? How did you know to be ready?" Julian finally turned to look at me. His eyes were dark pools of intensity, reflecting the city lights passing outside. "I own 40% of the Capitol Grill, Keisha," he said. "I am the silent partner. I saw the reservation request come in 2 weeks ago. I saw the special instructions. I saw the security request to remove a female guest at 9:30 p.m. sharp." My breath caught in my throat. He had known. He had watched Deon plan my public execution, and he had let it happen. A flash of betrayal, hot and sharp, pierced through my gratitude. "Why didn't you warn me?" I whispered. "Because you would not have believed me," he said simply. "You needed to see it. You needed to see him for what he really is, without the filter of your loyalty. If I had told you he was planning to divorce you, would you have signed those papers tonight? Or would you have tried to fix it? Would you have tried to save him?" I opened my mouth to argue, but the words died on my tongue. He was right. I would have tried to fix it. I would have begged. I would have bargained. I needed the shock to break the bond. "I needed you angry," Julian said, his voice softening just a fraction. "I needed you to sever the tie completely, and now that you have, we can get to work." He tapped the glass partition, and the driver accelerated, merging onto the highway. The city lights blurred past us. I looked at the burner phone in my hand. I looked at the man beside me. He was not just a savior. He was a grandmaster playing a game I didn't even know I was in. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I was not just a wife being discarded. I was a player who had just been handed the winning pieces. I unlocked the burner phone using the passcode Julian had provided. It felt foreign in my hands, sleek and cold. I did not waste time scrolling through social media or checking messages from people who had watched me get humiliated without saying a word. I went straight to the App Store and downloaded a generic-looking calculator app. It was a decoy. I punched in a 6-digit code, and the interface shifted, revealing the live feed from the hidden microcameras I had installed inside the vents of our Buckhead home 3 months ago. Deon thought he was a genius. He had changed the Wi-Fi password and disabled the main Ring doorbell the moment he left the restaurant. I saw the connection termination alert earlier, but he did not know about the hardwired system running on a separate cellular backup. He did not know that a forensic accountant anticipates every variable and secures her assets long before the crash. The feed loaded in high-definition night vision. The living room was dark, but I could see the silhouette of 2 figures stumbling through the front door. Deon and Mercedes. They were barely 30 minutes behind me. They were not grieving the end of a marriage. They were celebrating a hostile takeover. Mercedes spun around in the foyer, her heels clicking on the marble floors I had paid to have polished last week. She reached out and knocked a crystal vase of lilies off the entry table. The porcelain shattered, sending water and flowers across the stone. Deon did not even look down. He grabbed her waist, pulling her toward the stairs. I switched camera views to the master bedroom. My stomach twisted into a knot of cold fury. This was my sanctuary, the place where I had nursed him through the flu, where I had planned our financial future, where I had cried myself to sleep while he was out living his double life. Now it was a stage for his disrespect. Deon flipped on the lights. Mercedes squealed, running toward the walk-in closet. My closet. I watched in silence as she began pulling my clothes off the racks. My vintage Chanel blazers, the silk blouses I wore to board meetings, the cashmere sweaters I saved for special occasions. She threw them onto the floor in a heap, laughing as she stomped on a silk scarf with her stiletto heel. Get rid of it all. Deon's voice crackled through the audio feed, tinny but distinct. Make room for the new queen. We need space for your collection, baby. Throw that boring trash out back. They gathered my life in their arms. Not into boxes, not into donation bags. They carried armfuls of my belongings to the sliding glass doors that led to the patio. Deon slid the door open, letting the driving rain sweep into the bedroom, soaking the hardwood. Then they heaved. My clothes, my shoes, my handbags flew out into the mud. The storm caught them, soaking the delicate fabrics, instantly ruining thousands of dollars of investments in seconds. Mercedes grabbed my jewelry box, the one my grandmother gave me, and upended it over the balcony railing. I watched a pearl necklace snag on a branch before snapping and scattering into the wet grass below. I sat in the back of Julian's car, watching my history being erased by a man I had dedicated my life to saving. I did not look away. I hit the record button, saving the clip to the cloud. Every item they destroyed was a line item on the forensic audit I was mentally compiling. Every laugh was a justification for the war I was about to wage. Julian did not ask what I was watching. He knew. He simply handed me a bottle of water, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, giving me the privacy to witness my own funeral so I could prepare for my resurrection. Deon thought he was throwing away trash. He had no idea he was planting the evidence of his own destruction in that muddy backyard. The Maybach glided into a private underground garage that smelled of sealed concrete and money. There were no reserved signs here, just a quiet understanding that if you parked here, you owned the building. Julian led me to a private elevator. He scanned a biometric card, and the doors slid shut, cutting us off from the world. There was no elevator music, just the hum of rapid ascent. When the doors opened directly into his penthouse, I involuntarily held my breath. I had expected luxury. I was used to Deon's version of luxury, which meant gold-plated faucets, velvet ropes, and logos plastered on every surface. Deon's house screamed for attention. It begged you to acknowledge how much he had spent. Julian's home whispered. The space was cavernous, yet intimate. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Atlanta skyline, but unlike our house where the view was obstructed by Deon's neon gym sign, this view was pure, unadulterated city lights. The floors were dark walnut, not the slippery high-gloss marble Deon insisted on. The furniture was low-profile Italian leather in shades of charcoal and slate. There were no statues of lions. There were no framed photos of himself shaking hands with celebrities. Instead, there was art. Real art. An original Basquiat hung on the far wall, illuminated by track lighting that was so subtle it felt like moonlight. This was not a house designed to impress guests. It was a home designed to comfort its owner. It was the difference between being rich and having wealth. "Make yourself at home," Julian said, walking over to a wet bar that looked more like a chemistry lab than a place to mix drinks. He poured an amber liquid into a heavy glass tumbler. No ice. I walked to the window, hugging my arms around myself. The silence here was different. In my house, silence meant Deon was angry. Here, silence felt like a warm coat. "Why tonight, Julian?" I asked, turning to face him. "You have watched Deon treat me like an accessory for years. You saw him cheat. You saw him belittle me. Why step in now?" Julian took a slow sip of his drink. He walked toward me, his movements fluid and precise. He stopped a few feet away, respecting the invisible barrier between us. "Because there are rules, Keisha," he said, his voice low. "In our family there is a code. You do not touch another man's wife. You do not interfere in another man's marriage, no matter how much you despise how he runs it." I respected that. I watched you from the sidelines. I watched you fix his mistakes. I watched you build his empire while he took the credit, and I stayed in my lane because you were wearing his ring. He took another step closer, his dark eyes burning with an intensity that made my knees weak. But tonight, he broke the code. He did not just divorce you. He tried to destroy you. He made it a spectator sport. He humiliated you in front of the city we both built. When he threw those papers at you, he forfeited his protection. He made you fair game. And I promised myself a long time ago that if you ever became fair game, I would not let you fall. He extended the glass toward me. Drink this. It is cognac. It will settle your nerves. Tonight you are safe. Tomorrow we go to war. The cognac warmed my chest, but it was the cold fire in my belly that kept me upright. Julian sat on the edge of the low slate coffee table, his elbows resting on his knees. The romantic tension from earlier had shifted into something sharper. He was in lawyer mode now. He was assessing the damage, calculating the risk, and formulating a strategy. "So what is the play, Keisha?" he asked, his voice clipped and professional. "We can file an emergency injunction in the morning. We can freeze the marital assets before he drains them. We can sue for equitable distribution. I can have a process server at his gym by 9 a.m. Do you want to fight for the house? Do you want alimony?" I let out a short, dry laugh. It sounded harsh in the quiet penthouse. "Alimony," I repeated. "Julian, do you really think there is any money to pay alimony? Deon is leveraged to the hilt. He is living on credit lines I secured and loans I massaged. His net worth is a hallucination. If I sue for half of his assets, I am just suing for half of a mountain of debt." Julian frowned, his legal mind hitting a wall. "Then what are we doing? You cannot just walk away with nothing. You let him humiliate you. You let him throw you out. If we do not hit back legally, he wins." I set the glass down on a coaster with a deliberate click. I looked at the sleek black laptop sitting closed on the end table. "May I asked, gesturing to the computer. Julian nodded, confused but willing. "Use whatever you need." I pulled the laptop onto my lap. It was a powerful machine, fast and secure. I did not open a web browser. I did not log into Facebook. I opened a terminal window. My fingers flew across the keys, typing in a command string I had memorized 4 years ago. A series of encrypted drives mounted on the desktop. I entered a 64-character password. The screen filled with a complex dashboard of spreadsheets, scanned documents, and wire transfer logs. Deon calls me a bookkeeper. I said, my eyes scanning the familiar columns of data. He tells his friends I'm good with numbers. He thinks that means I know how to use QuickBooks and make sure the electric bill gets paid on time. He thinks I am a glorified secretary who balances his checkbook. I hit the enter key one last time, executing a query that pulled up the last 3 years of transaction history for his shell companies. I turned the laptop around so Julian could see. The blue light from the screen illuminated his face. His eyes widened as he scanned the data. He was a corporate lawyer. He knew exactly what he was looking at. He does not know that before I was his wife, I was a senior forensic accountant for one of the top firms in D.C. I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He does not know that my specialty is not tax preparation. It is white-collar crime. It is tracing assets that men like him try to hide. Julian looked up from the screen, his expression a mix of shock and awe. This is a shadow ledger. It is his shadow ledger, I corrected. Every kickback, every falsified invoice, every dollar he skimmed from his investors to pay for his cars and his women. I routed it all. I cleaned it just enough to pass a standard audit, but I left digital breadcrumbs that only a forensic specialist would find. I did not stay with him for 7 years because I was weak, Julian. I stayed because a federal fraud case takes time to build. And I wanted to make sure that when he finally fell, he would not just lose his money, he would lose his freedom. Julian placed the glass of water on the table and looked at me with worry. He asked if I planned to sue them in court to reclaim my inheritance. He believed that with the evidence of mistreatment over the years, I could win if I found a good lawyer. I chuckled softly. A cold and sharp laugh rang out in the quiet room. I looked straight into his eyes and shook my head decisively. Lawsuits. Too expensive and time-consuming. I do not want to drag this out with them for a whole year in court just to wait for an uncertain verdict. I want to end this right this week in my own way. I reached out toward the laptop sitting on Julian's desk. I asked him to lend it to me for a moment. Julian seemed confused and surprised, but still complied and handed the machine to me. I opened the computer. My fingers glided over the keyboard at breakneck speed. I did not go on social media or read entertainment news. I accessed corporate record archives and public financial databases directly. Complex lines of code and charts began to appear thickly on the screen. Julian sat down next to me and asked what I was doing. I did not take my eyes off the screen but remained highly focused. I started telling him the truth. That whole family, from my father and stepmother Elena to my sister Tiffany, always assumed I was a pathetic failure. They thought I dropped out of college and lived scraping by with menial manual labor jobs. They never actually bothered to ask exactly what I did for a living. Arrogance had blinded them. I pressed the enter key hard. A complex diagram of money flows appeared clearly before our eyes. I turned to Julian and revealed my true identity. I told him I am a senior forensic accountant. My daily job is hunting down dirty money flows and exposing the most sophisticated financial frauds of major corporations. I am the nightmare of greedy people who want to evade taxes. Julian was stunned. His jaw dropped, and he could not believe his ears. He did not expect the simple girl standing in front of him to be a financial investigation expert. I pointed at the screen and began explaining what I had just found. My father was always proud of his business empire, but he was too arrogant and subjective. He thought no one would dare check his books, so he left too many fatal loopholes. I zoomed in on an item named the Elena Charity Fund. This was the perfect cover they used to hide illegal activities. They used the name of charity to launder money and evade taxes. Look at these expenses. Luxury European trips and designer handbags for Tiffany and lavish parties. Everything was falsely accounted for as operational costs for the charity fund. I continued tracing deeper. I found a shell company registered abroad under the name of a distant relative of Elena. Profit cash flows from my father's main company were flowing there in the form of fake consulting fees. This was blatant embezzlement of assets and tax evasion, amounting to millions of dollars. Julian looked at me in amazement and exclaimed that I had them by the throat. I nodded in confirmation. I downloaded all the data and saved it into a secure encrypted file. This was not just evidence to demand justice for my mother. This was a ticket to send all of them to prison if I wanted. I closed the computer with a decisive click. My eyes burned with determination. I told Julian that I would not need any court. I would be the judge. I would give them one final choice. Either return everything that belongs to me and my mother, or I would send this file to the tax department and economic police. Tomorrow morning will be a very interesting morning at my father's company headquarters. I type a complex decryption key into the terminal. The screen shifts instantly from the bright white of public records to a dark interface with neon green text. This is my personal sanctuary. I call it the Black Data Warehouse. It is a secure cloud server where I have silently archived every dirty secret of every person who has ever underestimated me. Julian leans in closer. He points at a massive folder labeled Titanium Fitness Chain. He asks if that is the family's crown jewel business. I nod slowly. I double-click the file. Thousands of rows of data cascade down the screen like a digital waterfall. I tell Julian that Deon always treated me like a glorified secretary. For years, Deon would throw crumpled receipts and coffee-stained ledgers onto my desk. He told me to just make the numbers match. He thought I was simply doing basic bookkeeping and data entry. He believed I was too simple-minded to understand the complex financial architecture he was trying to build. But his arrogance made him careless. I was not just recording his expenses, I was analyzing them. I point a finger at a specific column marked Equipment Maintenance. I explained to Julian that this is the smoking gun. For the last 3 years, Deon has been skimming cash directly from the membership fees before they hit the bank. He has been funneling that money into high-stakes poker games and luxury cars. To cover the gaping holes in the budget, he inflated the cost of gym equipment and falsified repair bills for machines that do not even exist. Julian stares at the numbers. He asks how much money we are talking about. I look him dead in the eye. $1.2 million. That is the exact amount of tax revenue the gym chain has evaded since 2020. I lean back in the chair. I tell Julian the irony of it all. If I had been the incompetent accountant Deon thought I was, the IRS would have audited them 2 years ago. The numbers were a mess, so I had to intervene. I had to cook the books. Julian looks horrified. He asks if I helped them commit the crime. I shake my head. No. I managed the chaos to ensure the collapse happened on my timeline. I created a shadow ledger. One version is the lie that Deon thinks is real. The other version is the truth that I am looking at right now. I let them believe their fraud was working. I let them feel safe. I let them dig their hole deeper and deeper while I held the only ladder. I tapped the screen decisively. This file contains the original unedited bank statements, side by side with the doctored tax returns Deon signed personally. It proves intent. It proves premeditation. And because I anticipated this day, I ensured my digital signature is nowhere near the fraudulent entries. Deon thinks he is a genius businessman who outsmarted the system. But for 3 years he has been walking on a tightrope that I built for him. He has no idea that I am the one holding the safety net. And tonight I am going to pull it away. I scroll down to a specific file dated December 31st, 2021. The memory hits me like a splash of ice water. I turn to Julian. I tell him to look at the timestamp. It was New Year's Eve. I close my eyes for a second. I can still smell the stale air of the office that night. While the rest of the world was counting down to midnight, I was sitting under the buzzing fluorescent lights of the back room. I was shivering because Deon was too cheap to turn on the heating after hours. I tell Julian exactly what happened. At 2 in the morning, Deon stumbled through the door. He was wearing a tuxedo. He reeked of expensive scotch and imported cigars. He was laughing into his phone. He did not even look at me. He just walked past my desk and dumped a pile of crumpled receipts and cocktail napkins onto my keyboard. He leaned over me. His breath smelled like a distillery. He tapped the paper pile with a heavy gold ring. He told me to make it disappear. He said he spent $50,000 on a private party in Vegas, but he needed it to look like a marketing conference in Phoenix. He told me to work my magic, or there would be no bonus for anyone that year. Then he turned around and walked out. He went back to his party. He went back to his life of luxury, while I stayed behind to clean up his mess. I look at Julian. My voice is steady but cold. That was the night everything changed. Deon thought I was staying late because I was a loyal employee terrified of losing my job. He was wrong. I was staying late because I was building my ammunition. I open a subfolder on the screen. It contains scanned images of those exact cocktail napkins. I explained to Julian that I did exactly what Deon asked. I forged the invoices. I created a fake paper trail that made the $50,000 look legitimate to the IRS. I saved his skin. But before I finalized those changes, I scanned every single original scrap of paper. I recorded the GPS data from his social media posts that proved he was in Vegas and not Phoenix. I downloaded the credit card authorization forms that showed he bought champagne, not consulting services. I call this my insurance policy. I knew a man like Deon would eventually need a scapegoat. I knew that when the money ran out, or the auditors came knocking, he would point the finger at the quiet girl in the corner, doing the data entry. He would claim I embezzled the money. He would say I cooked the books without his knowledge. I look back at the screen. I tell Julian that I spent 3 years preparing for that exact moment. Every time Deon forced me to lie for him, I saved a copy of the truth. I have audio recordings of him ordering me to falsify records. I have emails where he approves the fraudulent tax returns. I have everything. Deon thinks he owns me. He thinks I am just a tool he can use and discard. He forgot the most important rule of business. Never give the person who handles your money a reason to hate you. I select the entire folder. I hover the cursor over the send button. I tell Julian that it is time to cash in my policy. Tonight, Deon is going to learn that I am not his employee. I am his auditor. And the audit is over. Julian sits back in his chair. He stares at me like he is seeing me for the first time. The look of pity that was in his eyes earlier has completely vanished. It has been replaced by something intense. It is respect. It is admiration. Perhaps it is even a little bit of fear. He tells me that he thought he was bringing home a frightened girl who needed a safe place to hide. He admits he was wrong. He says I am not a victim. I am a predator who has been waiting patiently in the long grass. He stands up abruptly and walks over to his sleek glass desk. He opens the top drawer and pulls out a heavy, leather-bound portfolio. He tosses it onto the table next to my laptop. It lands with a heavy thud that echoes in the quiet apartment. He asks if I know exactly what he does for a living. I shake my head. I never asked. I assumed he was just another corporate suit. He leans against the desk and crosses his arms. He tells me he is not just a consultant. He is a senior mergers and acquisitions attorney. He specializes in hostile takeovers. His entire career is built on finding the structural weaknesses in a company and tearing it apart piece by piece until the owners are forced to sell for pennies on the dollar. He points a finger at my computer screen. He tells me that my data is the ammunition. It is explosive and dangerous, but ammunition needs a weapon to fire it. He tells me that he is the sniper rifle. He pulls a chair closer and sits directly across from me. His voice drops low and serious. He explains the strategy. My evidence of tax fraud will put Deon in prison. That is undeniable, but prison is just punishment. Julian wants total destruction. He wants to leave them with nothing. He opens his portfolio and points to a standard loan agreement clause. He explains that Deon has likely leveraged the gym chain's assets to secure loans for his other failed ventures. Julian knows how these contracts work. He says if we trigger a default clause in his loan agreements, we can force the bank to seize the assets immediately. We can bypass the long court battles. Julian smiles. It is a sharp and predatory smile that matches my own. He says that while the IRS freezes Deon's accounts for the tax investigation, he can file a separate legal motion to freeze the corporate assets. He can trap Deon in a pincer movement. I hit them from the financial side. He hits them from the legal side. He looks me dead in the eye. He proposes a formal partnership. He says I have the numbers to prove the crime. He has the legal knowledge to ensure they lose everything, not just their freedom. He wants to take their legacy, their reputation, their mansion. He extends his hand across the table. He tells me that alone I am a dangerous whistleblower, but together we are an apocalypse. I look at his hand. Then I look at the screen full of damning evidence. I realize that for the first time in my life, I am not fighting alone. I reach out and shake his hand firmly. The deal is struck. The war has begun. Julian reaches for the cell phone sitting on the table. He says we have enough evidence to call the IRS right now. He wants to see Deon dragged out of his office in handcuffs tonight. I place my hand over his and press down gently. I shake my head. Not yet. Impatience will ruin everything. I explain how Deon's mind works. Tax evasion of $1.2 million is certainly a felony. But Deon is a cunning old fox with a wide network of connections. He will hire the best criminal defense attorneys. He will negotiate a plea deal to pay a fine. He will blame it on poor management, or worse, he will frame me. He will claim I falsified the books without his direction. I do not want to just dent his bank account. I want him to have no road back. I open another file on the computer. It is the corporation's projected business schedule for the next quarter. I point to the 15th of this month. That is the day Deon plans to sign a contract to expand the gym chain into the neighboring state. To do that, he needs a large amount of clean, legal capital to present to the new investors. I tell Julian that Deon is sitting on a pile of dirty cash he has embezzled over the last 3 years. He cannot just carry a suitcase of cash to the bank, he has to wash it. Julian frowns in thought. He asks if I know how he plans to launder the money. I nod with confidence. I know his habits better than he knows himself. Deon will use his favorite trick called facility upgrades. He will create fake purchase contracts for exercise equipment with shell companies that he secretly owns. He will transfer the dirty money into those companies as invoice payments. Then the money will take a trip through offshore accounts and come back as clean investment profit. This is the trap we will set. Julian understands immediately. His eyes light up with a ruthless excitement. He says that if we catch him committing interstate money laundering, the charges escalate to the federal level. His assets will be seized immediately under RICO laws, and no lawyer can save him from a 15-year prison sentence. I smile coldly. Exactly. We will not sue right now. We will be silent. We will let Deon be arrogant. We will let him think I am still the stupid little accountant quietly working from home. We will give him a sense of absolute safety, so he executes the biggest transaction of his life. I set up a real-time tracking code on the internal banking system. The moment Deon executes the first transfer into that shell company is the moment he signs the death warrant for his career. Julian looks at me with admiration. He says my patience is terrifying. I reply that patience is the only weapon of the underdog. I have waited 3 years, so waiting one more week does not matter. Deon wants to play a Game of Thrones, so I will show him what the collapse of an empire looks like. The next morning, a piercing notification sound jolts me awake. My phone screen lights up with a bank alert. My morning coffee transaction was declined. Cold red text confirms the credit card has been suspended by the primary account holder. Deon has made his move. He thinks cutting off my funds will make me panic. He is convinced that without money to spend, I will crawl back on my knees begging for forgiveness. He still sees me as a doll feeding off his spotlight. His arrogance is pathetic. I open social media. A flood of red notifications fills the screen. Deon posted a black and white photo. He is sitting by his office window, with his head down, performing a perfect look of devastation. The caption is sentimental and manipulative. He claims he spent his youth building an empire for his family, only to receive cold betrayal in return. His closing line is venomous. My ex-wife cheated. I have to let her go find happiness even though my heart is broken. His Jim Chain's fan base attacks like a pack of hyenas. Thousands of hateful comments target me directly. They call me an ungrateful gold digger. They call me a cheater. My inbox is flooded with threats and personal insults. Deon has weaponized his fame to destroy my reputation. Julian walks in looking tense. He hands me a tablet. He is worried the public pressure will break me. He suggests drafting a cease and desist order immediately for defamation and libel. I shake my head and smile calmly. I tell Julian to leave it alone. Do nothing. Deon just made a fatal strategic error. He is trying to control the narrative with emotion. He wants to provoke me. He wants me to go online and argue with him. He wants to drag me into the mud of a petty domestic dispute to distract from the financial crimes. I point to the phone and analyze it for Julian. This proves Deon is scared. He is panicking because I vanished with Julian. He does not know where I am or what I am doing. Locking the cards and spreading rumors is bait to force me into the open. He wants a reaction, but I will not give him the satisfaction. My silence right now is the ultimate psychological torture. I turn off my notifications and look at Julian. I tell him we need to exploit this. Deon just shifted public attention to his personal life. That means he will be distracted from monitoring the company accounts for the next few hours while he plays the victim. This is the golden window to trigger the money laundering trap I set last night. Let him enjoy playing the victim for a few more hours. Because when the curtain falls, the audience will realize he is not a betrayed hero. He is a white-collar criminal trying to cover his dirty tracks with crocodile tears. The silence of the workspace is shattered by the intercom. The concierge downstairs sounds nervous. He tells Julian that there is a woman in the lobby demanding to see me. She is bypassing security. She is causing a scene. I check the security feed on Julian's tablet. It is Tiffany. She is not wearing her usual gala attire. She looks unhinged. She is pacing the marble floors of the law firm's atrium, screaming at the reception staff. Deon must have sent her. He is too cowardly to face me himself, so he sent his attack dog. I tell Julian I am going down. He tries to stop me, but I refuse. I am done hiding in towers. When the elevator doors open, the sound of Tiffany's shrill voice echoes off the walls. She spots me instantly. She marches toward me, her heels clicking like gunshots on the stone floor. She points a manicured finger in my face. She screams that I am a thief. She shouts that I ruined Deon's reputation and destroyed the family. Then she drops the mask. The sophisticated socialite facade melts away and the ugly prejudice beneath is revealed. She sneers at me. She asks if I am satisfied now that I have bitten the hand that fed me. She calls me a ghetto gold digger. She raises her voice so the entire lobby can hear. She says people like me are always the same. She says we are aggressive. She says we are incapable of gratitude. She claims Deon picked me out of the gutter and gave me a life I did not deserve, and this is how I repay him. She mocks my hair. She mocks my background. She uses every microaggression in the book. She says I probably hustled my way into this firm, just like I hustled my way into her brother's wallet. She weaponizes my race and my gender in one breath, trying to reduce me to a stereotype to discredit my intelligence. The lobby is silent. Lawyers and clients are staring. Tiffany thinks she is winning. She thinks she is shaming me. I do not flinch. I do not raise my voice. I step closer to her until I am looking down into her frantic eyes. I speak calmly. I tell her that her brother did not pick me out of the gutter. I tell her I was the one keeping him out of prison for 3 years. I tell her that while she was spending stolen charity money on handbags, I was the one balancing the accounts she bled dry. I lean in and whisper so only she can hear. I tell her that the gold digger she sees is actually the auditor who just froze her assets. Her face goes pale. She sputters, trying to find another insult, but the power has shifted. I signal to the security guards. I tell them to remove the trespasser. As they drag her out, kicking and screaming, she is no longer the scary sister-in-law. She is just a desperate woman who knows her time is up. I turn back to the elevator. I brush invisible dust off my shoulder. The show is over. Now back to business. The chaotic scene in the lobby does not end with security alone. Tiffany is fighting like a cornered animal. She actually bites the hand of a guard. She is feral. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors of the executive suite slide open. A tall man in a charcoal suit steps out. This is Marcus Thorne. He is the managing partner of the firm, but more importantly, he is a former federal prosecutor with deep ties to the FBI. He is the man who recruited me for this specific operation. He walks straight into the fray. His voice booms across the marble hall like a gavel strike. He demands order immediately. Tiffany freezes. She tries to adjust her torn blouse. She attempts to play the victim one last time. She points a shaking finger at me. She starts to tell Thorne that I am a dangerous employee who needs to be fired. Thorne does not even look at Tiffany. He walks past her and stands directly beside me. He places a protective hand on my shoulder. He looks at the security team and tells them to hold her. He turns his cold steel gaze onto Tiffany. He speaks with terrifying precision. He informs her that she is not shouting at a secretary. He tells her she is assaulting a senior forensic specialist who is currently working under the protection of the federal government. He explains that harassment of a key witness in an active investigation is a felony. Tiffany's jaw drops. She looks from Thorne to me. The realization that I am not just help, but a high-level asset shatters her reality. Blue lights flash against the floor-to-ceiling windows. 2 uniformed police officers burst through the revolving doors. Thorne gestures to Tiffany. He identifies her as the intruder. As the officers grab Tiffany's arms, she realizes her family name has no power here. She struggles, she kicks. The officers force her toward the exit. Just before they push her through the doors, she twists her body around. She locks eyes with me. Her face is twisted with pure hatred. She screams the threat at the top of her lungs. "You won't live peacefully in Atlanta. We run this city. Watch your back, Keisha." Her voice cracks with desperation before the glass doors spin shut and cut off her screaming. Silence returns to the lobby. The staff stares at me in shock. Thorne turns to me. He asks if I am all right. I straighten my jacket. I look at the doors where my sister-in-law just disappeared. I tell him I am fine. Her threat was not just noise, it was a confirmation. They are scared. They know the walls are closing in. Thorne nods. He says if they want to play dirty, we will play lethal. He tells me to get Julian. It is time to call the FBI. The family just gave us every reason we needed to accelerate the timeline. The adrenaline from the lobby confrontation has barely faded when my phone vibrates on the desk. It is not a blocked number. It is not a threat from the family. It is a contact saved as Oak Creek Nursing Home. My stomach drops. I answer immediately. The facility director's voice is apologetic but firm. She tells me there is a problem with the billing. The automatic transfer for my mother's care was rejected 20 minutes ago. The bank flagged it as unauthorized. The account has been closed. I grip the phone so hard my knuckles turn white. I ask her to repeat herself. She confirms it. Deon withdrew the funding. He left a specific note on the file stating he is no longer responsible for charity cases. I hang up the phone. The silence in the office is deafening. Deon knew exactly what he was doing. My mother has advanced dementia. She requires 24-hour specialized care. Years ago, when I first discovered his tax fraud, I tried to leave. He made me a counteroffer. He promised to pay for the best facility in the state if I stayed and fixed his books. That was the devil's bargain. I sold my integrity to buy my mother comfort. I kept him out of prison so she could have a safe bed. He thinks this is a power move. He thinks threatening to evict a sick old woman will force me to surrender. He thinks panic will make me sloppy. He is wrong. He just made the biggest mistake of his life. Up until this moment, this was business. It was about justice. It was about protecting myself. But attacking my mother? That is an act of war. He has crossed the only line that mattered. I turn to Julian. He sees the look in my eyes. He asks what happened. I tell him Deon just cut off my mother's life support. Julian's face hardens. He asks what I want to do. I walk back to my computer. I open the black data file again. I tell Julian that the plan has changed. We are not waiting for him to launder the money next week. We are not waiting for him to make a mistake. I am going to burn his house down today. I begin typing a new command code. I explain to Julian that I am initiating the nuclear option. I am going to trigger the immediate release of the unredacted ledgers to every creditor Deon owes money to. I am sending the proof of his inflated assets to the banks holding his mortgages. Deon wanted to cut off my mother's funding. Fine. I am going to make sure he cannot even afford to buy a cup of coffee by sunset. This is no longer a legal battle. This is an execution. Julian reaches out and gently closes the laptop screen before I can hit the final execute command. He tells me to wait. He says we will destroy Deon, but we will do it with a clear head, not out of panic. He tells me to handle the anger while he handles the immediate problem. He picks up his secure line and dials the number for the Oak Creek facility. He puts it on speaker. His voice undergoes a transformation. He is no longer the partner or the friend. He is the ruthless attorney who commands absolute authority. He identifies himself as my legal counsel. He informs the director that the previous payment issue was a clerical error by a third party. He states clearly that he is assuming full financial responsibility for the patient effective immediately. He does not stop there. He asks if the Garden View private suite is available. That is the VIP wing. It is reserved for the ultra-wealthy. It has private nurses and advanced security. The director confirms it is vacant. Julian orders an immediate transfer. He authorizes a wire transfer from his personal trust to cover the entire year in advance. He demands a 24-hour security detail be placed at her door to ensure no unauthorized visitors, including family members, can disturb her. I stand there frozen. I watch him dismantle Deon's leverage in less than 3 minutes. Deon tried to use my mother as a pawn to force me into submission. Julian just turned her into a queen in a fortress. He hangs up the phone. The notification on his screen confirms the transfer of funds. It is a staggering amount of money. He looks at me. He shrugs as if he just ordered lunch. He tells me that money is a tool, and today it is a shield. He says my mother is safe now. Deon can never touch her again. A wave of emotion crashes over me that is stronger than the anger I felt moments ago. For years, men like Deon taught me that generosity always comes with a hook. They taught me that support is a debt that must be repaid with silence and obedience. But Julian is not asking for anything. He is not looking for gratitude. He is just fixing a problem because he refuses to let me be hurt. I look at him, and for the first time I do not just see a brilliant strategist or a useful ally. I see a man who values me. My heart hammers against my ribs. It is a dangerous feeling. It makes me vulnerable in a way that terrifying threats never could. I walk over to him. I struggle to find the words. I tell him he did not have to do that. He meets my gaze. His expression softens. He tells me that we are partners. He says partners protect each other's blind spots. He reaches out and brushes a stray lock of hair from my face. He tells me to take a breath. He says now that my mother is safe and the emotional leverage is gone, we can go back to burning Deon's empire to the ground. But this time, we do it for the kill. I nod. My hands are steady again. Deon wanted a war. He just gave me a reason to fight without mercy, and Julian just gave me the freedom to do it. Here is part 21 of the script. Part 21. The city lights blur past the window as Julian drives his matte black sedan toward the suburbs. The silence in the car is heavy with purpose. The digital victory was satisfying but incomplete. I realized halfway through our strategy session that the cloud backups are not enough. I need the hard copies. I explained to Julian that I hid the original physical ledgers and 2 encrypted hard drives inside the wall of the guest house pantry. Those drives contain the biometric login data that proves it was Deon's fingerprints on the keyboard when the transfers were made. Without them, his lawyers will argue that I hacked his account remotely. With them, the case is airtight. We pull up to the estate. It looms in the darkness like a fortress. The security lights are blazing, which is unusual for this time of night. Julian kills the headlights and parks a block away. We approach on foot, using the heavy landscaping for cover. My heart is hammering against my ribs. This house was my prison for years, and walking back toward it feels like walking into a trap. We reach the side service entrance. This was always my door. The invisible entrance for the invisible family member. I pull my keychain from my pocket. My hand trembles slightly as I slide the key into the deadbolt. It stops halfway. I frown. I pull it out and try again. It hits a metal blockage. It does not turn. I try the handle. It is locked tight. I look closely at the hardware. It is shiny and new. I whisper to Julian. Deon changed the locks. Julian inspects the door frame. He notes that this is a high-security electronic system. Deon moved faster than we anticipated. He is not just locking me out. He is locking the crime scene down. I move to the window and peer through the reinforced glass. The kitchen lights are on. I see movement. It is not Deon. It is not Tiffany. It is a team of men in black tactical uniforms. They are tearing the kitchen apart. They are ripping drawers out and smashing drywall. They are titanium security. These are the private mercenaries Deon uses to intimidate business rivals. They are not looking for a snack. They are looking for my leverage. Julian pulls me back into the shadows of the hedges. He whispers that we have a serious problem. If we go in there, we are risking a physical altercation with armed guards. If we stay out here, they will eventually find the safe behind the pantry wall. I shake my head. I tell him they are destroying the house to find the evidence. They know it exists, but they do not know where it is yet. We have a matter of minutes before they move to the guest house. Julian looks up at the architecture of the main house. He points to the second-floor balcony. The French doors to the master bedroom are cracked open about 2 inches. It is an old habit of Deon's to air out the cigar smoke. He forgot to close it. Julian looks at me. He asks if I'm ready to break into my own house. I take off my heels and drop them in the grass. I look at the ivy trellis climbing the brick wall. I tell him that technically my name is still on the deed until the lawyers finalize the separation. It is not breaking and entering if you own the building. It is just an aggressive homecoming. We move toward the trellis. The race for the hard drives has just become physical. The ivy trellis is rough against my bare feet, but I climb with a speed fueled by adrenaline. Julian is right behind me, silent as a shadow. We haul ourselves over the wrought iron railing of the master bedroom balcony. We crouch low behind the heavy velvet drapes that flutter in the night breeze. I expect to see Deon asleep or perhaps pacing anxiously. Instead, I hear music. It is loud, thumping bass. Then I hear his voice booming with a manic energy that makes my skin crawl. I peer through the crack in the curtains. The master bedroom, my former sanctuary, has been transformed into a cheap television studio. A massive ring light stands in the center of the room, blindingly bright. Deon is standing in front of it, holding a glass of scotch in one hand, and my vintage Hermes Birkin bag in the other. He is not alone. A woman is lounging on the bed I used to sleep in. She is young, maybe 22, with bleached blonde hair and wearing one of my silk robes. She is holding a phone up, streaming live to thousands of viewers. Deon shouts into the camera. He grins like a carnival barker. He tells his followers that tonight is a special liquidation event. He says he is cleansing his life of negative energy. He tosses the Birkin bag onto the floor like it is garbage. He kicks a pile of my designer heels toward the camera. These are not just shoes. They are limited editions I bought with my first independent paycheck. They were my symbols of freedom. He laughs loudly. He tells the audience that everything must go. He calls it the old auntie's collection. He sneers at the camera. He says these are just dusty leftovers from a bitter old woman who did not know how to keep a man happy. He picks up a pair of Louboutins and makes a face of mock disgust. He asks who wants to start the bidding on this sad old junk. The mistress giggles. She reads the comments out loud. She says the fans are loving it. She says someone just bid $500 for the desperation bag. My blood boils. He is not just selling my property. He is selling my dignity. He is inviting the world to mock me while he pockets the cash. He is stripping me bare publicly and profiting from the humiliation. Julian grips my arm firmly. He pulls me back into the shadows. He whispers near my ear. He tells me to look at the screen of the mistress's phone. I squint. I see the stream interface. I see the donations flying in. Julian points out the legal reality. Deon is selling assets that are technically marital property during a contested divorce. He is dissipating assets on a live stream. This is not just cruel, it is another felony. He is documenting his own theft in real time. I take a deep breath. I force the rage down. Julian is right. Deon is distracted. The music and his own shouting are masking any noise we make. He is so busy performing for his digital audience that he has forgotten to guard his physical reality. We have a clear path to the hallway. While Deon auctions off my past for pennies, I am going to slip past him to secure my future. I signal to Julian. We move. We slide through the open French doors and crawl behind the oversized leather armchair. Deon is 5 feet away, screaming about a clearance sale on broken dreams. He has no idea that the old auntie is right behind him. and she is about to foreclose on his entire life. My muscles coil. I am ready to spring. Seeing that woman wearing my clothes and laughing at my life triggers a primal rage I did not know I possessed. I want to tear the phone from her hand. I want to smash that ring light into 1,000 pieces. I want to scream at Deon until his smug grin slides off his face. I take a step forward. My foot leaves the safety of the carpet and hits the hardwood. A hand clamps down on my shoulder. It is heavy and grounding. Julian pulls me back into the shadows of the velvet drapes with a force that brooks no argument. I turn to him. My eyes are wild. I whisper furiously that I cannot let them do this. That is my mother's vintage locket he is holding up to the camera now. Julian leans in close. His breath hits my ear. His voice is a low rumble of absolute control. Stop. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. I freeze. I look at him. His eyes are fixed on Deon. He is not angry. He is calculating. He pulls out his own phone. He taps the screen and starts recording. He holds it steady through the gap in the curtains. He whispers the legal reality to me. He explains that if I run out there now, I am just an angry ex-wife crashing a party. It becomes a domestic dispute. The police will come and tell us to settle it in civil court. Deon will hide the cash and claim he was just joking. But if we wait, if we let him sell that locket, if we let him accept the cash transfer on a live broadcast, then it becomes a crime. Julian points at the screen. Deon is shouting about Cash App only and no paper trails. Julian smiles grimly. He tells me that in the eyes of the law, Deon is currently committing the dissipation of marital assets. He is liquidating property that is currently frozen by the divorce filing. He is doing it publicly. He is soliciting untraceable payments, which is tax evasion. He is confessing to 3 different crimes, and he is broadcasting the evidence to the entire world. I look back at Deon. He looks ridiculous. He is sweating under the hot lights. He thinks he is winning. He thinks he is humiliating me. He has no idea that every item he sells is another nail in his coffin. I force my breathing to slow down. I watch as he sells my favorite leather jacket for $200. It hurts. But Julian is right. The jacket is gone. But the video file Julian is creating is worth millions in leverage. We stand there in the darkness for 10 agonizing minutes. We document every transaction. We capture the mistress reading out the buyer names. We capture Deon bragging that Keisha will never see a dime of this. Finally, Julian lowers his phone. He saves the video file. He uploads it immediately to the cloud server. He touches my arm. He signals toward the door. He tells me we have enough. Deon is distracted. The security team is downstairs tearing apart the kitchen. We have a window. While Deon is busy selling my past for pocket change, we are going to slip out into the hallway and secure the hard drives that contain his future. I cast one last look at Deon. He is laughing at a comment on the screen. I do not feel angry anymore. I feel cold. I realize I am not looking at my husband. I am looking at a man who is already dead. He just does not know it yet. We slip out of the master bedroom like ghosts. We move silently down the back hallway to the guest pantry. My hands shake as I pry loose the false panel behind the spice rack. The hard drives are there. They are cold and heavy in my hand. I grab the physical ledgers. We exit through the service door just as the security team storms the main kitchen. We vanish into the night before they even know we were there. Safe inside Julian's car, I hug the hard drives to my chest. I have the evidence. Now it is time to pull the trigger. Julian pulls out his phone. He does not call the police. He calls a private number. He tells me it is a judge who owes him a favor. He sends the video file of Deon selling my jewelry. He explains the situation with surgical precision. He states that Deon is actively dissipating marital assets in violation of the standing divorce order. He demands an immediate emergency freeze on all accounts linked to Deon's social security number. Not just the personal ones, the business accounts too. He hangs up. He looks at his watch. He says it will take the bank computers exactly 15 minutes to process the order. Cut to 2 hours later. The base of the Onyx Room nightclub is shaking the floorboards. Deon is in the VIP section. He is sitting on a velvet throne surrounded by an entourage of sycophants and the mistress. There are sparklers everywhere. He has ordered 10 bottles of Dom Perignon. He is shouting over the music. He is celebrating the cleansing of his life. He thinks he is untouchable. The waitress approaches with the bill. It is on a gold-plated tray. The total is $15,000. Deon does not even look at it. He throws his Platinum American Express card onto the tray with a sneer of arrogance. He turns back to the mistress and kisses her neck. The waitress returns a minute later. She looks uncomfortable. She leans down. She whispers that the card was declined. Deon laughs. He says it is a mistake. He tells her to run it again. He says that card has no limit. She tries again. The portable machine beeps loudly. The red light flashes. Transaction denied. Contact issuer. Deon's smile falters. He pulls out his business visa. He throws it at her. He tells her to use the company account. Another beep, another red light. Account frozen. The music seems to stop for Deon. He stands up. His face turns purple. He screams at the waitress. He asks if she knows who he is. He grabs the machine from her hand and smashes it onto the table. Glass shatters. The security guards step forward. They are not his guards. They are the club bouncers. They do not care about his fame. They only care about the bill. Deon pulls out his phone. He opens his banking app. He wants to show them his balance. He wants to prove he is rich. He logs in. His eyes bulge. Every single account, checking, savings, the gym's operating fund, is grayed out. The balance reads, funds unavailable, legal hold. He is not just broke, he is insolvent. The head bouncer crosses his arms. He tells Deon to pay up, or they call the cops for theft of services. Deon looks around the room. The sycophants are backing away. The mistress is checking her nails. He realizes he has no cash. He spent it all on the live stream props. For the first time in his life, Deon looks terrified. He is trapped in a VIP cage of his own making. And somewhere across the city, I am watching the notification on Julian's screen turn green. The freeze is active. The king has been dethroned. The phone vibrates violently on the center console of the car. The screen displays Deon's name. It flashes like a frantic warning light. It is 3 a.m. He has just been humiliated at the nightclub. He is drunk. He is broke. He is desperate. I look at Julian. He nods once. He tells me to answer it and put it on speaker. He wants to record the threat for the restraining order. I tap the answer button. Deon's voice fills the quiet interior of the sedan. It is a guttural scream of pure, unadulterated rage. He is slurring his words. He screams that I ruined his reputation. He screams that I embarrassed him in front of his business partners. Then his voice drops an octave. It becomes cold. It becomes murderous. He tells me that I made a fatal mistake tonight. He says he knows I am still in the city. He says he is going to find me. He explicitly threatens to make me pay in blood for freezing his assets. He says no one humiliates Deon and lives to brag about it. My breath catches in my throat. This is not just a rant. This is a promise of violence. Julian's hand shoots out. He snatches the phone from the dashboard before I can respond. He brings the device to his lips. His face is a mask of deadly calm. His eyes are fixed on the dark road ahead. He waits for Deon to take a breath. Then he speaks. His voice is smooth. It is elegant. It is the voice of a man who has never lost a fight in his life. You are done making threats, Deon. You are done speaking. There is a sudden silence on the other end of the line. The heavy breathing stops. The voice is familiar to Deon. It triggers a memory he has tried to bury for a decade. Who is this? Deon stammers. His bravado evaporates instantly. Who the hell is with her? Julian smiles. It is not a kind smile. It is the smile of a wolf looking at a wounded sheep. You know exactly who this is. You spent your whole life trying to be me. You spent your whole life trying to steal the family name that I built. And now you try to destroy the woman I protect. Julian pauses for maximum effect. He delivers the final blow with surgical precision. Save your anger for the judge. See you in court, cousin. Julian taps the red icon and ends the call. He tosses the phone back onto my lap. I stare at him. Cousin. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Julian keeps his eyes on the road. He sighs. He explains the truth. He is Julian Montgomery. He is the heir to the legitimate side of the family dynasty. Deon is the outcast. Deon is the black sheep who was cut off from the family trust years ago for stealing from his own grandmother. Deon hates Julian because Julian is everything Deon pretends to be. Julian is real power. Deon is just a fraud in a rented tuxedo. I realize why Deon went silent. He is not just fighting his ex-wife anymore. He is fighting the head of the family he disgraced. He knows Julian has the resources to bury him. He knows Julian knows all the family secrets. Deon just realized he is not the hunter. He is the prey. And the lion just walked into the clearing. The private conference room at the back of the Titanium Fitness headquarters smells of stale coffee and desperation. It is 4 a.m. Deon is pacing the floor. He looks like a man who has not slept in a week. His tie is undone. His eyes are bloodshot. He is no longer the arrogant king of the nightclub. He is a rat looking for a hole in the sinking ship. Sitting at the glass table are his brother Jamal and his sister-in-law Tiffany. Jamal is the silent partner. He is the one who set up the shell companies. He is usually the calm one, but tonight he is sweating through his shirt. Tiffany is a wreck. Her makeup is smeared from crying. She is still shaking from her arrest and release earlier that day. Deon slams his hand on the table. The sound makes Tiffany jump. He screams that they do not understand. He tells them it is Julian Montgomery. He explains that Julian is not just a lawyer. He is a shark who eats other sharks. Deon knows his cousin. He knows Julian does not sue for money. He sues for total annihilation. Deon grabs Jamal by the shoulder. He demands to know the status of the Cayman accounts. He wants to know if they can move the liquid assets to a crypto wallet in Malta. He says they need to hide the money before sunrise. Jamal types furiously on his laptop. His fingers are trembling. He shakes his head. He says the system is flagged. He says every time he tries to initiate a transfer, a red warning pops up. Julian has put a digital stranglehold on their entire network. Tiffany stands up. Her voice is shrill. She asks about the physical assets. She asks about the art collection and the vintage cars. She suggests they move everything to her mother's house in Florida. She claims the FBI cannot seize property if it is technically gifted to a relative before the indictment comes down. She is grasping at straws. She is terrified of being poor. Deon laughs. It is a dry, humorless sound. He tells her she is an idiot. He says Julian will have forensic accountants tracking every painting and every diamond ring. If they move the assets now, they are just adding obstruction of justice to their list of crimes. Deon looks at the wall safe behind his desk. He walks over to it. He spins the dial. He opens the heavy steel door. It is empty. He turns back to his brother. He lowers his voice. He says there is one thing Julian cannot freeze. He reminds Jamal about the reserve fund. Jamal's eyes widen. He whispers that it is too risky. He is talking about the physical cash, the unwashed money from the equipment scam. There is nearly $2 million in cash sitting in a climate-controlled storage unit at the downtown gym location. It was their emergency exit strategy. Deon zips up his jacket. He says they have no choice. The banks are closed to them. Their credit cards are useless. That cash is their only ticket out of the country. He outlines the plan. He tells Jamal to get the cargo van. He tells Tiffany to go home and pack one bag. No designer luggage, just essentials. He says they are going to the storage unit. They are going to load the cash. Then they are driving south. They are not stopping until they cross the border into Mexico. Deon looks at his reflection in the darkened window. He adjusts his collar. He tells them that Julian thinks he has won. Julian thinks he has them trapped in the system, but Deon believes he is smarter. He believes cash is king. He thinks he can disappear. He does not realize that panic makes men predictable. He does not know that by running for the cash he is doing exactly what a guilty man does. He is moving the target from his bank account to his physical location. He is about to lead the hunter straight to the prize. Here is part 27 of the script. Part 27. Tiffany stops crying abruptly. She wipes the mascara from her cheeks with the back of her hand. The fear in her eyes is replaced by a cold, sharp greed. She is not ready to be a fugitive living in a cargo van. She does not want to survive. She wants to rule. She looks at the panic destroying the two brothers and she sees an opportunity. She slams her hand down on the stack of corporate binders sitting on the credenza. The sound echoes like a gunshot in the silent office. She tells Deon to stop packing. She says running is a mistake. She says if he runs, he looks guilty. She says if he runs, he leaves the entire empire unguarded for Keisha and her lawyer cousin to walk in and take. She leans over the table. Her voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper. She proposes a different strategy. She calls it the asset shelter. She explains that Keisha is suing for her share of the marital assets. That includes half of the titanium fitness chain. But Keisha can only claim what Deon legally owns. Tiffany's eyes gleam. She suggests that Deon gets rid of the company tonight. Not by dissolving it, by transferring it. She pulls out a blank stock transfer form from the legal file. She slides it toward Deon. She tells him to sign the entire controlling interest of the gym chain over to her and Jamal. She says they will structure it as a familial gift, or a sale for a nominal fee of $1. She tells him to backdate the document to last month, before the divorce filing, before the investigation. She argues that if the company belongs to his brother and sister-in-law, then it is no longer a marital asset. She says Keisha cannot touch property that belongs to Tiffany. She claims this will create a legal firewall that even Julian cannot breach. She promises that once the heat dies down and Keisha settles for pennies, they will transfer it back to him. Deon stares at the paper. He is drunk on fear and scotch. He looks at Jamal. Jamal nods slowly. Jamal sees the logic. Or perhaps Jamal sees a chance to finally step out of Deon's shadow. Deon hesitates. He asks if this is legal. He asks if the courts will see it as fraud. Tiffany grabs his face in her hands. She acts the part of the loyal sister. She tells him it is survival. She says possession is 9/10 of the law. She tells him that right now he is a sinking ship and she is the lifeboat. She says he has to offload the cargo to save himself. She pushes the pen into his hand. She is manipulating him perfectly. She knows that if he signs that paper, he loses everything. She knows that once the company is in her name, she will never give it back. She is playing on his desperation to steal his legacy right in front of his face. Deon's hand shakes. He looks at the empty safe. He looks at the frozen bank accounts on his screen. He feels the walls closing in. He decides to trust the sharks in the room rather than face the lion outside. He presses the pen to the paper. He signs his name. He dates it for 30 days ago. Tiffany snatches the document the moment the ink is dry. She folds it and tucks it into her bra. A small, triumphant smile touches her lips. She just became the CEO of a multi-million-dollar enterprise for the cost of $1. Deon thinks he just saved his company. He has no idea he just gave it away. The silence in the command center is broken by a single sharp chime from my laptop. It is the specific alert tone I assign to the corporate registry database. I spin my chair around. My eyes lock onto the screen. A new filing has just been uploaded to the state's digital business portal. It is flagged as pending approval. Julian rolls his chair over. He leans in to read the fine print. His eyes narrow. He sees the stock transfer agreement. He sees the names listed under new majority shareholders, Tiffany and Jamal. He sees the transaction amount, $1. Julian reaches for the keyboard. He prepares to file an immediate injunction to block the transfer. He wants to argue that this is an illegal movement of frozen assets. I catch his wrist. My grip is firm. I tell him to stop. He looks at me in confusion. He asks why I would let them steal the company right under our noses. He says if the title transfers to them, it creates a legal headache to get it back. I smile. It is the first genuine smile I have smiled all night. I tell him he is thinking like a lawyer who wants to win a civil case. I am thinking like a forensic accountant who wants to win a war. I point to the date on the digital document. It is backdated 30 days. I point to the timestamp of the upload. It is today. Right now. I explain the trap. By backdating this document, they have just committed federal wire fraud. They have committed perjury. But the real beauty is the liability. I explain to Julian that Titanium Fitness is not an asset anymore. It is a debt bomb. The company owes the IRS $1.2 million in back taxes. It has penalties and interest piling up every second. As long as Deon owned it, he was the sole target. But by transferring ownership to Tiffany and Jamal, they have just voluntarily accepted that debt. They are no longer just innocent bystanders or family members on the payroll. They are now the legal owners of a criminal enterprise. They just pierced the corporate veil. I tell Julian that if we block this transfer, Deon goes down alone. But if we let this transfer go through, Tiffany and Jamal go down with him. They just handcuffed themselves to the Titanic after it already hit the iceberg. Julian pulls his hand back. He looks at the screen with a new appreciation. He says it is fraudulent conveyance. He says the courts will overturn the sale eventually, but in the meantime, the IRS will freeze Tiffany's personal assets to cover the company's tax bill. I nod. Tiffany wanted the title. She wanted the power. She wanted to be the CEO. Now she gets to be the CEO of a bankruptcy. She thinks she stole a fortune. She actually just stole a prison sentence. I lean back in my chair. I watch the progress bar on the screen. Processing. Upload complete. Transfer recorded. I whisper to the screen. I tell them they are doing exactly what I wanted. I tell them to enjoy the throne. It is made of gasoline and I am holding the match. Julian stands up from his desk. He walks over to the large glass whiteboard on the wall. He uncaps a red marker. He draws a large circle and writes Deon inside it. Then he draws a second circle connected by a line and writes Tiffany. He turns to me. His eyes are bright with the thrill of the hunt. He explains that most people think the law is a shield. They think if they sign a contract, they are safe. But the law is actually a trap for the greedy. He points to the line connecting the two names. He asks if I know what the FBI calls a transaction, where an asset worth millions is sold for a single dollar. I shake my head. He writes a single word on the board. Scienter. He explains the concept. It means guilty knowledge. If Tiffany had bought the gym chain for a fair market price, say $5 million, she could claim she was just a business investor. She could claim ignorance of Deon's crimes. She could say she was just helping a family member liquidize assets. But she bought it for $1. Julian taps the board hard with the marker. That price tag is her confession. No rational person believes a profitable company costs less than a candy bar. By accepting that price, she admitted that she knew the asset was distressed. She admitted she knew Deon was trying to hide it from the court. He draws a box around Tiffany's name. He explains the constructive trust doctrine. Because she knowingly accepted stolen or frozen property, she is no longer a bystander. She has legally become a fence. She is now the receiver of stolen goods. He leans against the wall and crosses his arms. He breaks down the timeline. At 3 a.m., Deon was served with a digital freezing order. At 4:30 a.m., Tiffany signed a document to move the frozen asset. That is not a mistake. That is conspiracy to commit money laundering. He tells me what happens next. The Department of Justice does not just seize the gym chain, they look at the buyer. They ask how a socialite with no income suddenly owns a corporation. They look at her personal bank accounts to see if she used illicit funds to facilitate the transfer. Julian laughs darkly. He says Tiffany was so afraid of losing her lifestyle that she just gave the government permission to audit her entire life. They will seize her Mercedes, they will lien her house, they will freeze her trust fund, they will assume every dollar she touches is part of the criminal enterprise until she proves otherwise. He looks at me with intense seriousness. He says that in her arrogance, Tiffany thought she was clever. She thought she was helping her brother hide the loot. But the law does not see a loyal sister. The law sees a co-conspirator. He wipes the board clean with a single swipe. He tells me it is done. Deon is the thief. Tiffany is the getaway driver. And thanks to that $1 receipt, we just caught them both in the same car. He picks up his phone. He dials the lead agent at the FBI field office. He tells me to listen closely. This is the sound of the hammer dropping. Back in the conference room, Deon is spiraling. He is pacing the floor and checking the window for police lights every 10 seconds. He pulls a burner phone from his jacket pocket. He tells Tiffany that he has one liquidity source left. It is a dormant account in the Cook Islands that he set up 5 years ago under a pseudonym. It is the only thing Julian missed. He tells her that he cannot access it directly because any withdrawal to his name will trigger an alert. He needs a proxy. He needs someone with a clean record and a valid U.S. bank account to receive the wire. He looks at Tiffany. He grabs her hands. He begs her. He says she is the only one he trusts. He asks for her account details. Tiffany does not hesitate. She pulls out her phone and reads off her routing number. She watches Deon's thumbs fly across the small screen. He hits confirm. A moment later, a chime sounds from Tiffany's purse. She pulls out her phone. She stares at the screen. The notification from her bank app glows in the dim light. Wire transfer received $500,000. For a split second, the fear in her eyes vanishes. It is replaced by a hunger so raw it is almost frightening. Her pupils dilate. She licks her lips. She is not looking at a bail fund. She is not looking at legal defense money. She is looking at a shopping spree. She is looking at relevance. Deon grips her shoulder. He shakes her slightly to get her attention. He tells her that money is their lifeline. He says do not touch a cent of it until he gives the signal. He says it is for the escape plan if the lawyers fail. Tiffany nods rapidly. She puts on her best performance of the devoted sister-in-law. She promises him she will guard it with her life. She says it is safe with her, but as Deon turns away to shred documents, Tiffany looks back at her phone. She smiles. It is a cold, predatory smile. She is already calculating. She figures that since Deon is going to prison anyway, he will not need this money. She thinks she just inherited a windfall. She believes she can blend this cash into her own accounts and claim it was a consulting fee or a gift. She does not realize that the transfer she just accepted is the final nail in her coffin. She thinks she just got rich. In reality, she just accepted a direct wire from a known money laundering hub. She just turned on a neon sign for the FBI that says, "The money is here." I watch the transaction flag appear on my monitor miles away. I lean back. I tell Julian that greed is a beautiful thing. They just did our job for us. The notification of the wire transfer has barely faded from the screen when my phone rings again. This time, the caller ID displays a name that used to make me flinch. Viola. It is Deon's mother, the matriarch of the family, the woman who taught her sons that they were kings and taught their wives that they were servants. I look at Julian. He is already reaching for his own device. He taps the recording app and gives me a sharp nod. He signals me to answer, but to say nothing. He wants her to speak freely. I press the speaker button. Viola's voice explodes into the quiet office. It is not the voice of a concerned mother. It is the voice of a general whose soldiers are failing. She does not say hello. She screams. She asks how I dare to hire a lawyer against her son. She demands to know who I think I am. She tells me I am nothing without the Montgomery name. I sit back in my chair. I watch the audio waveform on Julian's phone spike with every shout. In the past, this voice would have made me apologize. It would have made me retreat. Today, it just sounds like noise. Viola rants. She says that family business stays within the family. She claims that hiring an outsider like Julian is a betrayal of the highest order. She says I am ungrateful for the lifestyle Deon provided. She conveniently forgets the years I spent balancing his books to keep him out of jail. Then she makes a mistake. She gets specific. She tells me that I need to call off my attack dog immediately. She says if I drop the lawsuit and sign the non-disclosure agreement Deon sent over, she will make sure I get a allowance to live on. She tries to bribe me into silence. Julian's eyes widen. He points to the phone. This is witness tampering. This is an attempt to obstruct a federal investigation. Viola continues. She warns me that I do not know who I am messing with. She says the family has friends in high places. She says she can make sure I never work in this city again. She threatens to ruin my reputation so thoroughly that I will have to leave the state. I look at Julian. He mouths the words, "Keep her talking." I speak for the first time. My voice is calm. I ask her if she is threatening me. Viola laughs. It is a harsh, cruel sound. She says it is not a threat. It is a promise. She says she will burn my world down if I touch a single penny of Deon's money. I look at the recording timer. We have 3 minutes of threats. We have bribery. We have intimidation. I tell her that I have nothing else to say. I tell her that she can speak to my lawyer from now on. I hang up before she can scream again. Julian stops the recording. He saves the file with a grim satisfaction. He labels it Exhibit D. He tells me that Viola just handed us the final piece of the puzzle. She proved that the corruption runs through the entire bloodline. She thinks she is protecting her son. In reality, she just indicted herself. The scene shifts to a luxury hotel suite on the outskirts of Atlanta. Deon is hiding here. He is pacing the floor and drinking cheap vodka from a crystal glass. The air is thick with tension. The mistress is sitting on the edge of the bed. Her name is Crystal. She is scrolling through social media on her phone. Her face is twisted in anger. She throws the phone across the room. It hits the wall with a crack. She screams that she is tired of hiding. She yells that the internet is calling her a downgrade. She says people are laughing at her because she is with a man who gets his credit cards declined. Deon stops pacing. He tries to calm her down. He tells her it is just a temporary cash flow problem. He says he will fix it. Crystal stands up. She walks over to him. She looks him in the eye. She tells him that words are cheap. She demands action. She says if he wants her to stay, he needs to make her a wife. She does not want a courthouse paper. She wants a spectacle. She outlines her demands. She wants a wedding of the century. She wants it in 2 weeks. She wants it at the St. Regis. She wants a dress that costs more than Keisha's annual salary. She says this is the only way to silence the haters. She says a massive wedding will prove to the world that Deon is still a king. It will prove that the rumors of bankruptcy are lies. It will be the ultimate PR move to clean his face. Deon stares at her. For a moment he sees the insanity of it. He is under federal investigation. His assets are frozen. He is surviving on cash scraps. But then his narcissism takes over. He imagines the headlines. He imagines the photos of him looking wealthy and happy. He imagines Keisha watching it on the news and feeling jealous. He convinces himself that if he looks rich, the investors will come back. He thinks he can fake it until he makes it one last time. He grabs Crystal's shoulders. He grins. It is a manic, desperate grin. He tells her she is a genius. He says they will do it. He promises her the biggest wedding Atlanta has ever seen. He pulls out his burner phone. He dials Tiffany. He ignores the time. He tells Tiffany to withdraw $50,000 from the reserve fund immediately. He says he needs it for deposits. Tiffany argues on the other end. She whispers that they need to save that money for running away. Deon screams into the phone. He tells her he is the boss. He says this wedding is a business expense. It is a marketing strategy to save the brand. He orders her to bring the cash to the hotel by noon. He hangs up. He turns back to Crystal. He kisses her. He tells her to start booking the vendors. He tells her to tell everyone that money is no object. I watch the intercepted call log on my screen. Julian shakes his head in disbelief. He says Deon is digging his own grave with a golden shovel. Spending laundered money on a public wedding while under investigation for money laundering is not just stupid. It is a gift to the prosecution. Deon thinks he is planning a celebration. He is actually planning the most expensive evidence-gathering party in FBI history. Julian walks into our makeshift war room and shuts my laptop firmly. The sudden silence of the cooling fan fills the space. He tells me to get up. He says we are leaving the office. I protest. I tell him I am in the middle of tracing the shell company's routing numbers. He shakes his head. He tells me the data will still be there in 3 hours, but right now we have a perception problem. He points at my reflection in the darkened window. I am wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans. I look tired. I look like the victim Deon says I am. Julian explains the next phase of the plan. We are not just fighting a legal battle. We are fighting a public relations war. Deon is painting me as a bitter, discarded ex-wife. He is planning a wedding to show the world he is a king. If I show up to the deposition looking exhausted and small, I validate his narrative. He says we are going to fix that. He is taking me for a makeover. I scoff. I tell him I do not care about looking pretty for Deon. Julian stops me. His voice is sharp. He says this is not about vanity. It is about psychology. He says when Caesar marched on Rome, he wore the purple cloak to signal victory before the battle even started. He tells me I need to look like a woman who owns the building, not the woman who cleans it. I need to look like a CEO. I need to look like a predator. We drive to a private atelier in Buckhead. There are no price tags on the clothes here. The stylist is a woman named Elena, who dresses senators and Fortune 500 executives. Julian gives her a single instruction. He tells her to make me look dangerous. For the next 2 hours, I am not pampered. I am constructed. Elena discards the soft fabrics and the floral prints. She brings out structure. She brings out power. She fits me into a tailored navy suit with sharp architectural shoulders. The fabric is Italian wool that absorbs the light. She pairs it with a silk blouse that is the color of ice. She replaces my comfortable sneakers with stilettos that click like a weapon against the floor. The hair and makeup team does not give me a glam look. They give me precision. My hair is straightened and pulled back into a sleek, severe ponytail. The makeup highlights the sharp angles of my face. It is not designed to attract men. It is designed to intimidate them. I step in front of the full-length mirror. I do not recognize the woman staring back. She does not look like a wife. She does not look like a bookkeeper. She looks like an executioner. She stands taller. Her eyes are colder. Julian stands behind me. He nods in approval. He hands me a pair of glasses with thick black frames. He tells me to put them on. I slide them onto my face. The transformation is complete. Julian leans in. He tells me that when Deon sees this woman across the table, he will not see his old auntie. He will see the architect of his destruction. He says the clothes are the final warning. We are done hiding in the shadows. It is time to walk into the light and finish him. The invitations leave the printing house like a flock of golden vultures. They are not mailed through the postal service. They are hand-delivered by private couriers wearing white gloves. Deon is spending the absolute last of the laundered money on cardstock thick enough to break a window. I sit in the conference room at Thorne & Associates. The receptionist walks in holding a large envelope made of black velvet. She holds it with 2 fingers as if it is contaminated. She places it on my desk. I can smell it before I open it. It reeks of Deon's custom cologne. It smells like desperation and musk. I tear the seal. A cloud of gold glitter spills out onto my forensic spreadsheets. Inside is a card embossed with platinum foil. The text is not just an invitation. It is a declaration of war. It invites the elite of Atlanta to the royal union of Deon and Crystal. But beneath the names is a subheading in bold letters: the Victory Gala. Deon is spinning a narrative before the battle has even finished. He is telling the city that the legal troubles were just rumors. He is claiming he has been fully exonerated. He is inviting 500 people to celebrate a legal victory that has not happened yet. It is a lie designed to calm his investors and humiliate his enemies. I flip the card over. There is a handwritten note in red ink. Deon's handwriting is jagged and manic. To my former bookkeeper: come and see what a real winner looks like. Bring your cheap lawyer. I want him to watch you cry when I kiss the bride. Julian walks up behind me. He reads the note over my shoulder. He does not get angry. He does not clench his jaw. He laughs. It is a dry, dangerous sound. He picks up the card and taps it against his chin. He says Deon has completely lost his grip on reality. By calling it a victory gala, Deon is trying to manifest a reality where he is not a felon. He thinks if enough people drink his champagne, the FBI will forget to arrest him. Julian looks at me. He asks if I want to RSVP. I look at the glitter on my desk. I think about the money he stole from my mother. I think about the shoes he sold on the live stream. I think about the years I spent making him look like a king while he treated me like a servant. I pick up my pen. I check the box marked attending. I look at Julian. I tell him that Deon wants us to see a winner. I would be happy to oblige him. We are not just going to the wedding. We are going to turn his victory gala into the most public crime scene in the history of the city. I tell Julian to call Agent Miller at the bureau. Tell him to get his team ready for a black tie event. We are bringing a wedding gift Deon will never forget. The printer in the war room hums with a rhythmic finality. It is the only sound in the penthouse suite. It is 11 at night. The city of Atlanta glows outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, unaware of the earthquake that is about to hit its social circle. I place the final document into a red legal binder. This is not just a stack of papers. It is a weapon of mass destruction. Inside this binder is the timeline of the tax evasion. It contains the transcripts of Viola's threats. It holds the screen grabs of the live stream auction. It includes the metadata from the backdated stock transfer to Tiffany. It effectively outlines a RICO case that connects every member of the Montgomery family to a criminal conspiracy. I slide the binder across the glass desk to Julian. He seals it with an official evidence tape. He places a heavy encrypted USB drive on top of it. This drive goes to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The binder goes to the FBI. Julian exhales. It is a long, heavy breath. The work is done. The trap is set. There are no more moves to make until the sun comes up. He walks over to the wet bar in the corner. The clink of crystal against crystal rings out in the silence. He pours 2 fingers of amber whiskey into 2 glasses. He walks back to me. He hands me a glass. His fingers brush against mine. The contact sends a jolt of electricity through me that has nothing to do with the case. He does not sit down. He stands right in front of me. He leans against the edge of the desk. He is close enough that I can smell the sandalwood of his cologne mixed with the scent of old paper. He raises his glass. He looks at me with an intensity that makes my breath catch. He tells me that most people crumble under this kind of pressure. He says most people would have taken the hush money and ran. He tells me that watching me work these past few days has been the most terrifying and beautiful thing he has ever seen. I look down at my drink. I admit to him that I am scared. I tell him that tomorrow isn't just a legal maneuver. It is the funeral of my old life. Julian reaches out. He places a hand under my chin and tilts my head up until I am forced to look at him. His eyes are dark and serious. He tells me that the old life is already ashes. He says tomorrow is not a funeral. It is a coronation. He says that when we walk into that ballroom, I won't be standing alone anymore. He promises me that he will be the shield at my back and the sword in my hand. The air between us is thick and heavy. The professional distance we have maintained is evaporating. I can see the question in his eyes. He wants to kiss me. I want him to kiss me. It would be easy to lose ourselves in this moment to find comfort in the adrenaline. But he pulls back just an inch. He respects me too much to make this about lust. He clinks his glass against mine. To the end of the line, Keisha, I echo him. To the end of the line. We drink. The whiskey burns on the way down. It steals my nerves. Julian takes the empty glass from my hand and sets it down. He tells me to try and sleep. He says we need to be sharp. He walks to the door, but pauses. He looks back. He tells me that Deon does not know what he lost. But Julian knows exactly what he has found. He leaves the room. I stand alone in the silence. My heart is racing. Tomorrow I take down my husband. But tonight, I think I just fell for my lawyer. The grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel has been transformed into a palace of gold and white. Deon did not spare a single cent of the laundered money. There are 10-foot floral arrangements on every table. A string quartet plays on a floating stage in the center of the room. An ice sculpture of a lion stands near the bar. It is melting slowly under the heat of the theatrical spotlights, but for now, it looks impressive. Deon stands at the top of the grand staircase. He is wearing a white tuxedo with black satin lapels. He looks like a movie star. He holds a crystal flute of champagne and surveys the room with the arrogance of a king looking at his subjects. He believes he has pulled off the greatest magic trick of his life. He believes he has convinced the city of Atlanta that he is untouchable. Beside him stands Crystal. She got her wedding of the century. Her dress is a monstrosity of tulle and Swarovski crystals that reflects the light like a disco ball. She is beaming. She clutches Deon's arm possessively. She waves to the crowd with a stiff, practiced motion. She looks less like a bride and more like a pageant contestant who is terrified of losing her crown. They descend the stairs together to the applause of 500 guests, but my eyes are drawn to the floor. Moving through the crowd with a glass of red wine in her hand is Tiffany. She is strutting. She is greeting the city's elite as if she is the hostess. She stops to talk to a senator. She throws her head back and laughs loudly. She is drunk on power. She thinks the money in her account makes her invincible. Then the light from the chandelier hits her neck. I freeze watching the monitor from the surveillance van outside. Around her throat is a diamond choker with a unique sapphire pendant. It is not hers. It is not something Deon bought. It was my grandmother's heirloom. It was the one piece I thought was safe in the wall safe. Deon must have cracked the combination days ago. He gave my family legacy to his sister-in-law as a bribe for her silence. Seeing her wear it makes my blood run cold. It is a violation deeper than the fraud. She is wearing my history. She is wearing the only thing I have left of the woman who raised me. Julian leans over my shoulder. He sees it too. He points at the screen. He says she is literally wearing a felony around her neck. That necklace is listed on the police report as stolen property. By wearing it in public, she is flashing proof of possession of stolen goods. Tiffany touches the necklace. She preens. She has no idea she is marking herself as a target. The guests mingle. They whisper about Deon's legal miracle. They admire the excess. They have no idea that the servers refilling their glasses are actually undercover agents. They do not know that the valet parking their cars is securing the perimeter. The air smells of expensive perfume and impending doom. Deon walks to the microphone at the head table. He taps it twice. The feedback screeches. He prepares to give his victory speech. He thinks he is about to toast his future. He has no idea he is about to deliver his own eulogy. Deon raises his champagne glass. The spotlight catches the sweat beading on his forehead. He clears his throat and smiles that plastic practice smile. He opens his mouth to tell the first lie of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by me during... Boom! The heavy double mahogany doors at the back of the ballroom fly open. The sound echoes like a thunderclap, violently interrupting the string quartet. The air pressure in the room seems to drop instantly. 500 heads turn in unison. The murmuring stops. The clinking of silverware stops. The silence is absolute. I step through the threshold. I am not wearing the navy business suit. I am wearing a floor-length gown of liquid crimson silk. It is backless, daring, and unapologetic. In a room of white tulle and gold glitter, I am a jagged red wound. I am the color of a warning sign. I am the color of blood. Julian is at my side. He is wearing a midnight blue tuxedo that fits him like armor. He does not look like a lawyer tonight. He looks like a consigliere. He offers me his arm. I take it. We begin to walk. We do not rush. We glide. The crowd parts for us instinctively, like the Red Sea splitting before Moses. These are the same people who sent me hate mail yesterday. Now, they are staring with their mouths open. They are looking for the dowdy bookkeeper Deon described. She is gone. In her place is a woman who could buy and sell everyone in this room. I look straight ahead. I lock eyes with Deon on the stage. His glass shakes. A drop of champagne spills onto his white jacket. He looks as if he has seen a ghost. For the first time, he sees the contrast. He looks at Crystal, who is fidgeting in her sparkly, cheap dress, looking like a child playing dress-up. Then he looks at me. I am regal. I am cold. I am out of his league. Crystal whispers frantically to Deon, asking why I am here. She looks terrified. She realizes instantly that she is not the queen of this night. She is just the placeholder. Tiffany, standing near the dessert table, clutches her throat. Her hand covers the stolen sapphire pendant. She tries to shrink back into the shadows, but it is too late. I saw her. Julian leans slightly toward me as we walk down the center aisle. He whispers so only I can hear. Chin up. You own this room. They are just renting space. We stop 10 feet from the stage. We do not say a word. We simply stand there, radiating a united, terrifying energy. We are the power couple Deon pretended to be but never was. The tension is thick enough to choke on. Deon forgets his speech. He forgets his guests. He stares at Julian with pure hatred, and at me with pure regret. The camera flashes start popping, blinding and rapid, but they aren't photographing the bride and groom anymore. They are photographing us. I offer Deon a small, icy smile. It says everything without saying anything. You invited a winner. Here I am. The silence in the ballroom snaps. Deon cannot handle the visual of me standing tall in red silk while he sweats in a rented tuxedo. His narcissism fractures. He forgets the cameras. He forgets the investors. He reverts to his true nature. He throws the microphone onto the stage floor. The feedback screeches again, making guests cover their ears. He storms down the stairs, his face twisted into a mask of ugly rage. He marches toward us, pointing a shaking finger at my face. He screams for security. He demands they throw this woman out on the street. He shouts that this is a private event. He yells that I am trespassing. He acts like a petulant child whose birthday party has been ruined. 2 large uniformed security guards step forward from the perimeter. Deon smiles smugly. He thinks his money still commands loyalty. He thinks he is about to see me dragged out by my hair. Julian does not flinch. He does not step back. He simply raises his right hand and snaps his fingers once. It is a quiet, sharp sound that cuts through Deon's shouting. The security guards stop instantly. They step back into the shadows. From the side entrance, a man in an impeccable tailcoat emerges. It is Mr. Sterling, the general manager of the St. Regis. He is a man known for his icy demeanor and absolute authority. Deon has been trying to impress him for months. Deon turns to him. He shouts at Sterling. He orders him to do his job. He reminds Sterling that he is paying $50,000 for this room. He demands that Julian be arrested. Mr. Sterling walks past Deon as if he is invisible. He does not even glance at the groom. He walks straight to Julian. He stops 3 feet away. He bows. It is not a casual nod. It is a deep, formal bow of deference reserved for royalty or owners. The room gasps. Sterling straightens his coat and speaks clearly. He welcomes Mr. Montgomery to the property. He apologizes for the disturbance. He asks if Julian requires the guest, indicating Deon, to be removed from the premises. Deon freezes. His mouth opens and closes like a fish. He stammers. He asks what is going on. He screams that he is the client. Julian adjusts his cufflinks. He speaks calmly to Deon, but loud enough for the front row to hear. He explains that business moves fast. He informs Deon that the St. Regis Hotel Group was part of a larger acquisition portfolio that his firm finalized yesterday afternoon. Julian smiles. He tells Deon that technically, Deon is standing in Julian's living room. And since Deon's credit card was declined for the deposit, he is technically crashing the party. The whisper that tears through the crowd is vicious. The illusion of Deon's wealth evaporates instantly. He is not a king hosting a gala. He is a squatter in his enemy's house. Julian turns to Sterling. He dismisses the offer to remove Deon. He says to let him stay. He says he wants to watch the rest of the speech. He looks at Deon with eyes full of amusement. He tells Deon to proceed. He says he is very interested to hear how Deon plans to explain his success now. Deon stands there, stripped of all authority. The ground has shifted beneath his feet. He realizes he cannot kick us out. We own the floor he is standing on. Julian does not wait for an invitation. He hands his empty champagne glass to a passing waiter and ascends the stairs to the stage. He moves with the predatory grace of a panther. Deon stands frozen near the podium. He looks small. He looks like a child caught wearing his father's suit. Julian reaches out and gently takes the microphone from Deon's limp hand. Deon does not resist. He is too in shock to fight back. Julian turns to the crowd. He adjusts the stand. His voice fills the cavernous room. It is smooth, rich, and terrifyingly calm. Forgive the interruption, everyone, but as the host of this venue, I feel a familial obligation to say a few words. A ripple of confusion moves through the room. The guests exchange glances. They did not know Deon had family like this. They certainly did not know he had a cousin who owned the St. Regis. Julian smiles at the audience. He gestures to Deon. My cousin Deon has always been a storyteller. He is a man of immense imagination. Tonight he invited you all here to celebrate his success. He wanted you to witness his empire. He wanted you to envy his lifestyle. Julian pauses. He looks directly at Crystal. She is clutching her bouquet so hard the stems are snapping. But true success requires transparency. And since Deon is too modest to share the real numbers behind his sudden wealth, I thought I would help him. Julian pulls a small remote control from his tuxedo pocket. He turns toward the massive LED wall behind the stage. Currently, it is looping a slideshow of Deon and Crystal on a yacht. They look happy. They look rich. Julian points the remote. He presses the button. The screen flickers. The romantic music cuts out abruptly. The image of the yacht dissolves into static for a brief second. Then the screen goes black. A moment later, it flares to life again. But the romance is gone. In its place is a high-definition projection of a forensic accounting spreadsheet. It is the black data file. The font is massive. It is impossible to miss. The header reads, Titanium Fitness, Unauthorized Withdrawals, 2023-2025. Columns of red numbers cascade down the screen like a waterfall of blood. Every illicit transfer is listed, every fake invoice, every stolen dollar. Julian walks over to the screen. He uses the laser pointer feature on the remote. A red dot dances over the numbers. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Deon didn't build this empire with sweat. He built it with theft. This isn't a victory gala, it is a crime scene. He points to a specific line item. Here is the $50,000 for tonight's room rental, stolen from the employee pension fund. He points to another line. Here's the cost of the bride's dress, stolen from the maintenance budget that was supposed to fix the safety equipment in his gyms. The crowd gasps. The silence is replaced by a low roar of shock. Phones are raised, people are recording. Deon's face drains of all color. He looks at the screen. He sees his life's secrets projected 40 feet high. Julian turns back to Deon. He offers a cold, ruthless smile. I promised you a toast, cousin. Here is to the truth. It has a way of coming out eventually, usually right before the check comes due. The spreadsheet was bad. What happens next is catastrophic. Julian presses the button on the remote one more time. The wall of numbers vanishes. The screen goes black for a heartbeat, building the tension. When it illuminates again, the collective gasp of the room sucks the oxygen right out of the ballroom. It is not a photo. It is a flowchart. It is massive, professional, and devastatingly clear. At the top of the screen, in bold crimson letters, reads the title, The Brooks Family Criminal Enterprise. In the center is a photo of Deon. Radiating out from him are thick black lines connecting him to various entities. One line leads to a circle labeled Jamal Brooks, Shell Companies. Another leads to Tiffany Brooks, Illegal Fence. A third leads to Crystal, Asset Dissipation. It is a roadmap of their greed. It visualizes every dirty dollar. Julian steps back, allowing the graphic to loom over the stage like a judgment from God. He uses the laser pointer again. He circles the box connected to Tiffany. Most families share love, Julian says, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. The Brooks family shares felonies. He points to a specific arrow labeled Transaction Number 4.99. This represents the $500,000 Deon wired to his sister-in-law yesterday. You told the bank it was a consulting fee, but according to this chart, it is actually the direct proceed of federal wire fraud. Tiffany screams. It is a sharp, involuntary sound from the back of the room. She drops her wine glass. It shatters on the marble floor, spraying red liquid like blood across the hem of her gown. She stares at the screen, seeing her name linked to a federal crime. She realizes that the gift of the company and the wire transfer were not windfalls. They were evidence. Julian moves the laser to Jamal's circle. And here we have the offshore accounts. Jamal, you thought the Cayman Islands were private, but digital footprints never wash away. The crowd is in an uproar. People are taking photos of the screen. This is not just gossip anymore. This is the front page of tomorrow's paper. The victory gala has turned into a public indictment. Deon loses his mind. The humiliation breaks him completely. He screams incoherent profanities. He looks for something to throw. He grabs a heavy silver candelabra from the head table. "Turn it off!" Deon shrieks, his face purple. "Turn it off right now! That's a lie!" He charges at Julian. He swings the heavy metal object like a club. Julian does not move. He does not even flinch. He knows something Deon does not. Before Deon can get within striking distance, 3 men in dark suits step out from behind the heavy velvet curtains of the stage wings. They are not hotel security. They are not private bodyguards. They are wearing FBI windbreakers. Deon freezes mid-swing. The candelabra clatters to the floor. Julian lowers the microphone. He looks at Deon with pity, not anger. He gestures to the agents. "I believe your ride is here, cousin." The diagram on the screen remains, glowing bright and damning behind them. The arrows all point to Deon, but the final destination is clear. It doesn't point to a bank, it points to a cell. Julian steps back from the podium. He does not drop the mic. He extends his hand and passes it to me. The gesture is symbolic. He has presented the evidence, but he is letting me deliver the verdict. I take the microphone. The cold metal feels heavy and empowering. I step into the pool of light. I do not look at Deon. I look past him, scanning the terrified crowd until my gaze lands on one person. "Hello, Tiffany." My voice is amplified, crystal clear and devoid of emotion. It cuts through the murmurs like a scalpel. Tiffany freezes. She is standing near the exit, clutching her designer clutch as if it contains a weapon. She tries to look defiant, but her lower lip is trembling. I turn slightly, gesturing to the glowing red box on the LED screen behind me. It is the node labeled Tiffany Brooks. "You spent years calling me a gold digger," I continue, my tone conversational, yet deadly. You told everyone in this room that I was a leech draining your brother's hard-earned money. But let's look at the math, shall we? I press the button on the remote. The screen zooms in on the wire transfer log. The date is yesterday. The amount is highlighted, $500,000 sounds. Yesterday at 4:00 p.m., while Deon was insolvent, he wired $500,000 to your personal checking account. You thought this was a windfall. You thought you were being clever by hiding it for him. I take a step closer to the edge of the stage. But here is the problem, Tiffany. That money wasn't profit. It was the unwashed proceeds from equipment fraud. And by accepting it, you didn't just become a rich woman. You became a federal money launderer. Tiffany shakes her head frantically. She mouths the words, "No, I didn't know." I interrupt her denial before she can even speak it. Ignorance is not a defense when the amount triggers a suspicious activity report. You signed for it. You moved it. Under Title 18, Section 1956 of the United States Code, you are now liable for conspiracy to conceal assets. I pause. I let the silence stretch until it is unbearable. Do you know what the sentencing guidelines are for that amount, Tiffany? She stares at me, her eyes wide with horror. 10 years, I say softly. Minimum. In a federal penitentiary. No galas, no champagne. Just a 6x8 concrete cell and a prison uniform that definitely isn't designer. The color drains from her face completely. She looks at the guests around her, pleading for someone to tell her it is a joke. But the guests are backing away from her. They are creating a physical circle of isolation around her. They know she is radioactive. You wanted my life, Tiffany. I finish, my voice hard as diamond. You wanted the status. You wanted the money. Well, congratulations. You just inherited my husband's debt and his prison sentence. I hope it was worth it. Tiffany's legs give out. She collapses into a chair, gasping for air. The arrogant socialite is gone. All that remains is a scared criminal who just realized her life is over. I lower the microphone. The courtroom is adjourned. The execution is complete. The silence that follows my pronouncement is short-lived. It is shattered by a sound that is pure, unadulterated panic. Tiffany scrambles up from the chair she collapsed into. Her face is a mask of terror. The realization that she is facing federal prison time has stripped away every ounce of her socialite veneer. She looks at the FBI agents moving toward the stage. She looks at Deon. Survival instinct kicks in. It is ugly and immediate. "He lied to me!" Tiffany screams. Her voice cracks, shrill and desperate. She points a shaking finger at Deon. "I didn't know anything. He tricked me. He told me it was a loan repayment." She starts running toward the lead FBI agent. She grabs his arm, ignoring the guests gasping around her. "I am a victim here. My brother used me. I want to testify. I will tell you everything." Deon's head snaps toward her. The betrayal ignites him. He is already being flanked by 2 agents, but he lunges forward. "You lying witch!" Deon roars. "You begged me for that money. You came to my office and demanded a cut. You said you would help me hide the assets if I bought you that necklace." "Liar," Tiffany screeches. She claws at the air toward him. "You ruined this family. You dragged us all into your mess." "My mess?" Deon laughs manically. He turns to the crowd, desperate to spread the blame. He spots Jamal trying to slip quietly through the side exit near the kitchen. "Jamal!" Deon shouts. "Where are you going? You built the shell companies. Don't look at me like I did this alone. Jamal set up the offshore accounts. He has the passwords." Jamal freezes. Every eye in the room turns to him. He looks trapped. He turns back to Deon, his face twisted with hatred. "Shut up, Deon," Jamal yells across the room. "You were the one who got sloppy. You were the one who had to live like a king. We told you to keep it low profile." "I made you rich," Deon screams back. "You were nothing before me." It is total chaos. The royal family of Atlanta is cannibalizing itself on live television. They are not waiting for a courtroom. They are confessing to everything right here on the dance floor. They are screaming about hidden accounts, fake invoices, and bribes. They are tearing each other apart like a pack of starving wolves turning on their own leader. The guests are no longer horrified. They are mesmerized. They are watching the complete implosion of a dynasty. I stand on the stage, watching the spectacle. I do not need to say another word. I do not need to present more evidence. They are doing the work for me. Julian leans in close to my ear. Napoleon said never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. But watching them destroy each other? That is just pure entertainment. I nod slowly. For years they presented a united front to torment me. They made me feel small. They made me feel powerless. Now, under the first sign of real pressure, their loyalty has evaporated. There is no love in this family. There is only greed. And now that the money is gone, the hate is all that is left. The FBI agents move in to separate them. They are handcuffing Deon. They are reading Tiffany her rights. They are blocking Jamal's exit. The party is over. The cleanup has begun. The screaming match between Tiffany and Jamal creates a chaotic distraction. The FBI agents are momentarily occupied trying to corral the hysterical sister-in-law. In that split second of confusion, Deon snaps. He looks at me standing on the stage. I am calm. I am untouched. I am the architect of his ruin. The realization breaks something fundamental in his brain. He stops screaming at his brother. He lowers his head like a charging bull. You ruin everything! The scream rips from his throat, raw and primal. He shoves an agent aside with a burst of desperate strength. He bounds up the 3 stairs to the stage. His hands are clawed. He is not coming to talk. He is coming to hurt. The crowd screams. I see the violence in his eyes. It is the same look he gave me for years. Only now there is no mask to hide it. I brace myself, but I do not step back. I do not need to. Julian steps in front of me. He does not panic. He does not take a brawler's stance. He moves with the fluid precision of a man who has trained for this moment. As Deon lunges, throwing a wild, clumsy punch, Julian steps inside his guard. He grabs Deon's right wrist with one hand and his white tuxedo lapel with the other. He pivots on his heel, turning his back to Deon while maintaining the grip. It is a textbook judo throw, ippon seoinage. Julian uses Deon's own momentum against him. He drops his hips, loads Deon onto his back, and pulls. Deon's feet leave the ground. For a brief second, he is airborne, suspended in a white blur of tuxedo and regret. Then gravity takes over. Slam! Deon hits the hardwood floor of the stage with a bone-rattling thud. The impact knocks the wind out of him instantly. He lies there gasping, his eyes wide with shock, staring up at the ceiling lights. Julian stands over him. He does not look winded. He calmly releases his grip on Deon's jacket and straightens his own tie. He looks down at the man who bullied me for a decade. The room is deadly silent. Even the FBI agents have paused to watch the takedown. Julian leans down. His voice is low, lethal, and loud enough for the microphone nearby to pick up. You spent 10 years trying to break her, but you forgot one rule of physics, Deon. What goes up must come down. Deon tries to push himself up, wheezing in pain. Julian places a polished dress shoe on Deon's chest, pinning him to the floor. Don't get up, Julian commands. His eyes are cold steel. And never, ever think about touching her again. The FBI agents rush the stage. They swarm Deon, pulling his arms behind his back. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting shut echoes through the speakers. It is the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. Julian steps back and turns to me. He checks me for injuries with a quick, concerned glance. I nod to let him know I am safe. I look past him at Deon, who is now being hauled to his feet. His white tuxedo is scuffed. His face is pressed against the floorboards. The king of Atlanta is finally dethroned, and the man who did it didn't even wrinkle his suit. The air in my parents' living room was thick with accusations. My mother was sobbing into a handkerchief while my father paced back and forth, his face a mask of disappointment. Jake sat on the sofa, looking more annoyed than remorseful, still insisting that I was being dramatic about the civil lawsuit. You're tearing this family apart over a building, Alyssa, Jake spat, crossing his arms. Just sign the waiver so I can access the frozen funds. I have debts to pay. Do you want your nieces to starve? I want you to stop stealing, I said calmly, checking my watch. And it's not just about the building anymore, Jake. You moved over $500,000 across state lines using forged documents. Did you really think that would go unnoticed? It's a family matter, my father roared, slamming his hand on the mantelpiece. We handle this internally. That was when the room suddenly bathed in a chaotic rhythm of red and blue light. The sound cut through my father's shouting, a low, rising wail that grew louder and louder until it wasn't just one siren, but a chorus of them. It sounded like the world was ending right on our front lawn. Jake stood up, walking to the window. He pulled back the curtain, and the color instantly drained from his face. What the? The front door didn't just open. It shook on its hinges from the force of the pounding. Federal agents! Open the door! The silence that followed inside the house was deafening. My mother stopped crying instantly, her eyes wide with terror. My father looked at the door, then at me, as if waiting for me to tell him this was just another one of my stunts. But I stayed seated. I hadn't called them. I didn't have to. When you commit wire fraud and forgery involving federal banking institutions, the system eventually responds on its own. My father opened the door with trembling hands. A dozen agents poured into the entryway. Windbreakers emblazoned with FBI and IRS, CID, Criminal Investigation Division, filled the hallway. It wasn't a conversation. It was a tactical takeover. Jacob Wilson, a lead agent barked, scanning the room. That's me, Jake stammered, his voice cracking. He looked like a child caught in a lie, stripped of all his usual charisma. Jacob Wilson, you are under arrest for wire fraud, bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft, the agent recited, spinning Jake around and securing his wrists in cuffs. The metal clicking sound echoed sharply in the silent room. Wait, there must be a mistake. Must be, my mother shrieked, rushing forward before another agent blocked her path. We are respectable people. My husband is a banker. Then he should know better, ma'am, the IRS agent stated coldly, holding up a warrant. We're seizing all electronic devices and financial records related to the transfer of funds from the sale of the property at 402 Foundry Street. That includes your computers, Mr. Wilson, as you witnessed the fraudulent signatures. My father collapsed into his armchair, clutching his chest. He wasn't having a heart attack. He was having a reality check. The family matter he tried so hard to control was now a federal case. Jake looked at me as they marched him toward the door, panic wild in his eyes. Alyssa, tell them it was a misunderstanding, do something. I looked at my brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one who sold my future for pennies. I can't help you, Jake, I said, my voice steady. I told you weeks ago, actions have consequences. This is yours. As they hauled him out into the flashing lights of the night, leaving my parents surrounded by agents boxing up their files, I realized this was the payoff. No more gaslighting, no more manipulation. The law doesn't care about family favorites. It only cares about the truth. The living room, once a sanctuary of expensive taste and arrogance, dissolved into absolute chaos. The carefully curated silence was shattered by the shouting of federal agents and the heavy thud of boots on hardwood. Deon, the man who believed he was untouchable, was face down on his imported Persian rug. An agent had a knee pressed firmly into his back. Get off me! Do you know who I am? Deon shouted, though his voice cracked, betraying his terror. This is a violation. I'll have your badges. You have the right to remain silent, the agent barked back, yanking Deon's arms behind him. The metallic click-click of the handcuffs cut through the noise, signaling the end of Deon's reign. They hauled him to his feet. His face was pressed against the wall, his expensive suit rumpled, his dignity stripped away. He twisted his head, locking eyes with me. Jamal, call the firm. Fix this. I stood by the fireplace, unmoving. I didn't reach for my phone. I simply watched. Then the screaming started. Tiffany was being escorted from the hallway by two female agents. She wasn't walking with dignity. She was being dragged, her heels scraping across the floor. The perfect wife facade had completely disintegrated. "I didn't know anything!" Tiffany shrieked, her face a mask of running mascara and panic. She thrashed against the agents, pointing a shaking finger at her husband. "It was him! It was all Deon! He made me sign those papers! I'm a victim here! Deon, tell them!" Deon stared at her, his mouth falling open as his partner in crime threw him to the wolves without a second thought. "Tiffany? You spent the money! You knew!" "Liar!" she screamed back as they forced her out the front door into the flashing red and blue lights. Her accusations echoed into the night, a symphony of betrayal. I remained frozen, feeling a cold, heavy numbness. This was the family empire. This was the legacy they protected at all costs. It was nothing but fraud and finger-pointing. Amidst the swirling chaos, a subtle movement near the kitchen island caught my eye. Deon's personal assistant, the mistress who had been smugly sipping wine in the corner just moments ago, was backing away slowly. She wasn't screaming, she was calculating. She saw the ship sinking and had no intention of going down with it. She glanced around to ensure no agent was looking directly at her. With a fluid, practiced motion, she slid the massive 3-carat diamond ring off her finger, the one bought with the stolen funds meant for the company pension. She didn't put it in her pocket. She dropped it directly into the stainless steel trash can, burying it beneath a discarded napkin. No evidence, no connection. She caught my eye for a split second. She didn't look ashamed, she looked relieved. Then, while the agents were busy reading Deon his rights, she slipped out the side service door and vanished into the darkness. Deon had lost his freedom, his wife, and his lover in under 5 minutes. And I was the only one left standing to witness it all. The flashing red and blue lights painted the manicured lawn in a chaotic rhythm. Deon was already in the back of the squad car, his face pressed against the window, shouting mute obscenities. Tiffany was in a separate vehicle, her weeping visible even through the tint. The agents were busy cataloging evidence, carrying box after box of files out the front door. The empire was being dismantled piece by piece. I turned to leave, the cold night air feeling surprisingly fresh against my skin. I had seen enough. Justice had arrived, and it was time for me to go home. "Keisha! Keisha, wait!" The shrill voice cut through the noise of the police radios. I stopped but didn't turn around immediately. I knew that voice. It was the voice that had criticized my clothes, my hair, and my worth for a decade. Viola scrambled across the driveway. She wasn't the composed, arrogant matriarch I had known for years. Her hair was disheveled, her shawl was dragging on the asphalt, and her eyes were wide with a terror that only comes when the money runs out. She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate and claw-like. "Keisha, baby, please," she wailed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her heavy makeup. "You have to stop them. You have to tell them this is all a big misunderstanding. You know Deon. He wouldn't do this. He's a good man." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. I slowly pulled my arm away, stepping back to create a physical boundary. "The FBI doesn't raid houses for misunderstandings, Viola," I said calmly. "They have the bank records. They have the forged signatures. It's over." "But we are family!" Viola shrieked, grasping at the air between us. "Family sticks together. You can't let them take him away. You have to help us. You have resources now. You can hire a lawyer, a real one, the best one." I stared at her, marveling at the sheer audacity. "Family?" I repeated the word, tasting the bitterness of it. "That is a very interesting word for you to use, Viola." I always loved you like a daughter," she stammered, her eyes darting to the agents seizing her son's luxury cars. "We had our differences, but—" "Differences?" I cut her off, my voice dropping an octave. cold and sharp. 3 years ago, on this very driveway, do you remember what you said to me? Viola blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. You stood right there. I pointed to the spot near the fountain. And you told Deon that I was dead weight. You told him to kick me out because I wasn't one of us. You said I didn't have the pedigree to be a part of this family. You laughed when he threw my bags onto the street. I was stressed. I didn't mean it, Viola sobbed, reaching for me again. Please, Keisha, who is going to take care of me? Deon pays for my house. He pays for my car. If he goes to prison, I'll have nothing. That house was bought with stolen pension funds, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. The car, too. The feds will be seizing those assets by morning. You won't have to worry about the payments because you won't have the house. Viola let out a strangled sound, realizing the full scope of her new reality. She looked at me, seeing not a victim, but the only person left standing. You can't leave me with nothing, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm an old woman. You are an accomplice, I corrected her. You enjoyed the lifestyle funded by fraud just as much as they did. You knew where the money came from, Viola. You just didn't care as long as the checks cleared. I turned toward my car, opening the door. Keisha! Wait! What am I supposed to do? She screamed after me. I paused, looking back at her one last time. I suggest you start looking for a public defender, I said. I hear they are very busy this time of year. Good luck, Viola. I got into my car and locked the door. As I pulled away, I watched in the rearview mirror. Viola was standing alone in the driveway, sobbing into her hands, while the flashing lights illuminated the ruins of the dynasty she had helped destroy. The gavel didn't bang loudly like it does in the movies. It was a dull, final thud that echoed through the silent courtroom. Deon stood at the defense table. The Italian suits were gone, replaced by a generic, ill-fitting orange jumpsuit that washed out his complexion. He had lost weight. His shoulders, usually squared with arrogance, were slumped forward, as if the weight of the federal government was physically crushing him. Mr. Washington, the judge said, peering over his spectacles. You built a life on the backs of hardworking people. You stole pension funds to buy luxury cars and impress people who didn't care about you. For the charges of tax evasion, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit commercial fraud, I sentence you to 96 months in federal prison. 8 years. Deon closed his eyes. He didn't scream, he didn't fight. He just let out a long, shaky breath. The empire he had sacrificed everything for, his integrity, his family, his soul, had bought him a concrete cell and a legacy of shame. Then, it was Tiffany's turn. She stood up, trembling. She had clearly tried to play the naive wife angle. She wore a modest cardigan and no makeup, trying to look like a victim of her husband's schemes. Mrs. Washington, the judge continued, his voice devoid of sympathy. While you cooperated with the prosecution, your involvement in laundering the stolen funds is undeniable. You enjoyed the lifestyle just as much as he did. Tiffany sniffled loudly, glancing at her lawyer for reassurance. I am sentencing you to 5 years of probation, the judge announced. Tiffany let out a sob of relief, her knees buckling slightly. She thought she had won. She thought she had escaped. However, the judge's voice hardened, cutting through her relief like a knife. Due to the seizure of all assets purchased with illicit funds, including your home, vehicles, and bank accounts, and your inability to provide a stable environment, the court has granted full custody of your children to the state's foster care system until a suitable relative can be vetted. The scream that tore from Tiffany's throat was primal. No, you can't take my babies. I'm a good mother. Deon, do something. Deon didn't even look at her. He was already being shackled by the bailiff. Furthermore, the judge added, you are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $2.4 million. Your wages will be garnished until this debt is paid in full. Tiffany collapsed into her chair, wailing. She had lost everything. Her home, her money, her children, and her freedom. She was destitute, disgraced, and alone. I sat in the back row of the gallery, watching the scene unfold with a quiet detachment. There was no cheering in my heart, no urge to laugh, just a deep, settling peace. The scales had finally balanced. As the bailiffs led Deon out through the side door and escorted a hysterical Tiffany away, Deon paused. He looked back over his shoulder, scanning the room until his eyes found mine. There was no hate in his eyes anymore, just regret. He looked at me, the dead weight he had thrown away, and he realized too late that I was the only one who had ever been real. I didn't smile. I just nodded once, a silent goodbye to the brother I used to know, and stood up. I walked out of the courthouse doors and into the bright afternoon sun. The air smelled like rain and asphalt, but to me, it smelled like freedom. The nightmare was over. It was finally time to live. The frosted glass door bore the name in bold, understated lettering: Washington Forensic Consulting. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dipped in gold or covered in crystals like the fraudulent empire Deon had built. It was solid. It was real. Inside, the office hummed with the quiet energy of productivity. There was no screaming, no panic over hidden ledgers, no fear of a knock at the door. I sat at the head of the conference table, reviewing a forensic audit for a major tech conglomerate. Across from me, the CEO looked pale as he read through my report. "You found it," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "My internal auditors looked for 6 months and found nothing. How did you spot the shell companies so quickly?" I closed the file, clasping my hands on the table. "I have a very specific education in how people hide money when they think they are untouchable," I said calmly. "Arrogance always leaves a paper trail. You just have to know where to look." The CEO nodded, signing the contract for a long-term retainer. "You're a lifesaver, Ms. Washington. Your reputation is well earned." My reputation? A year ago, my reputation was Deon's charity case, the dead weight, the failure. Now, Forbes had listed me as one of the top women in anti-fraud. I wasn't just cleaning up messes, I was preventing them. I was the person companies called when they wanted the truth, not a cover-up. Later that afternoon, I stood for a photo shoot in the lobby. A business journal was doing a feature on my firm. The photographer asked me to tilt my chin up, to look confident. I didn't have to pretend. I wore a tailored navy suit, bought with my own clean money. I drove a car that was in my name, paid for with legitimate profits. Every inch of this life was mine. I hadn't inherited it, and I certainly hadn't stolen it. "You look powerful," the photographer commented, snapping the shutter. "I feel powerful," I corrected him. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across my office, I walked to the window. I looked out at the city skyline, a view I used to think belonged only to people like Deon. My phone buzzed on the desk. I glanced at the screen. Unknown caller. Federal Correctional Institution. It was Deon. He called once a month, usually when he ran out of commissary money or wanted to complain about the food. He still hadn't fully grasped that I was no longer his audience. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the old sting of rejection. I felt nothing but a distant pity. I reached out and pressed the decline button. I didn't have time for the past. I had a business to run. I had a legacy to build. A real one this time. I picked up my briefcase, turned off the lights, and walked out the door, my heels clicking rhythmically against the floor. I wasn't the black sheep anymore. I was the only Washington who actually mattered. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine from the trellis. I stood at the railing of my penthouse, looking out over the city that I used to feel crushed by. Now, the lights just looked like stars I could reach out and touch. I wasn't wearing a power suit. I was in a silk robe, barefoot, holding a glass of vintage Pinot Noir. For the first time in my life, my shoulders weren't tense. The silence wasn't heavy. It was serene. The glass door slid open behind me. Julian stepped out. He had been my rock. When the feds raided the house, when the tabloids ran my name through the mud, when I had nothing but a laptop and a grudge, Julian was there. He wasn't like the men Viola tried to set me up with, men who wanted a trophy. Julian wanted a partner. He came to stand beside me, resting his hand gently on the small of my back. "You're thinking about them," he said softly. It wasn't a question. "No," I smiled, turning to face him. "I was thinking about how quiet it is. I never knew life could be this quiet." Julian smiled, that crooked, honest smile that always made my heart skip a beat. He reached into his jacket pocket. "I have something for you." My breath hitched. We had discussed marriage, but I wasn't sure if I was ready. After watching Tiffany's marriage dissolve into a federal case, the institution felt tainted. Julian pulled out a long, rectangular velvet box. It looked like a jewelry box, but the shape was wrong for a ring. He opened it. Inside lay a black Mont Blanc pen with gold trim. I stared at it, confusion washing over me. Then, recognition hit. It was the same pen, the heavy, expensive pen I had used the day I sat in a cold legal office and signed the documents that severed my legal ties to Deon's company and finalized my divorce from the life they had forced upon me. I looked up at Julian, baffled. "You kept this?" "I did," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. He took the pen from the box and held it up between us. "Do you remember what you said to me the day you signed those papers? You said you were signing your own death warrant because you had nothing left." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. "I remember." "You were wrong," Julian said. "You were signing your Emancipation Proclamation." He took my hand, placing the cool metal of the pen into my palm, then closing his fingers over mine. "Keisha, this pen set you free. It ended the worst chapter of your life. But a pen is also a tool for creation. It's for writing new stories." He dropped to one knee. He didn't pull out a diamond. He didn't need to. The symbol in my hand was worth more than any rock Deon had ever bought with stolen money. "I don't want to buy you. I don't want to own you," Julian said, looking up at me with fierce love. "I want to build with you. I want to use this pen to write our future. I want to use it to bind us together, not by law, but by choice." He took a deep breath. "Keisha Washington, will you sign on for a lifetime partnership with me?" A laugh bubbled up from my chest, mixing with the tears streaming down my face. It was perfect. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't a performance for social media. It was real. "Yes," I whispered, gripping the pen tight. "Yes, I will." Julian stood up and kissed me, silhouetted against the city lights. Below us, the world kept turning, full of noise and chaos. But up here, in the life I had built from the ashes, there was only love.